Chapter 3257. Fan Xin learned the whole story from Fangu. There was some hesitation on Fan Xin's calm face. This is not easy. Junior brother, did I get hurt by that person for nothing? Senior brother, you are too reckless. First, you injured someone, and then the Special Intelligence Department intervened. The Special Intelligence Department is a gathering place of Taoism, and they have always held a deep prejudice against us Buddhists. Now, what reason do we have to ask for justice? Fan Xin was more thoughtful than Fangu. Then why don't we go through the Special Intelligence Department? Do you think they can stop us? Fangu was full of resentment toward Chun Zhao. Fan Xin closed her eyes and began to think. Although Buddhism is particular about detaching oneself from the mortal world, everything is empty. But if they could really do it, then they wouldn't be human anymore. They would be Buddhas. They were not Buddhas, so they still had joy, anger, sorrow, joy, and joy. They also had 7 emotions and 6 desires. They also had greed, anger, and obsession. Even Fan Xin was no exception. However, there was one difference between Fan Xin and Fangu. Fangu was motivated by hatred. Fan Xin, on the other hand, was more concerned with her own interests. Junior brother, do you know why I was in such a hurry to attack? Fan Xin looked at Fangu. Why? Because there's a scaled serpent Jiao there. Fangu said, what our Wutai Mountain's guardian divine beast, Flame Wing, lacks now is the horned serpent flood dragon. As long as it can swallow the horned serpent flood dragon's gallbladder, it can stimulate the bloodline of our ancestors and transform into a golden winged rock. At that time, our Buddhist Zen school will flourish, and even Taoism will not be able to stop us. Fan Xin's eyes widened. Are you sure it's a serpent flood dragon? How could I be mistaken? If that wasn't the case, I wouldn't have tried to snatch it. Although Fan Xin's expression was still calm, her eyes flickered. Recently, Mount Wutai had just hatched the divine beast Flame Wings. Yinny was a descendant of the golden winged rock. Although it had only been half a year since it hatched, it was growing by the day. The food it needed was also a variety of scale insects. It had the demeanor of its ancestor, the golden winged rock. But this also made the monks of Mount Wutai suffer. In order to provide food for Flame Wing, as well as for Flame Wing to be reborn as soon as possible and transform into a golden winged rock, the monks of Mount Wutai went around searching for all kinds of scaled insects. In half a year's time, they had captured countless scale insects. Fortunately, the spiritual tide had arrived. All kinds of demonic beasts were born. However, ordinary scale worms were just ordinary food for the Flame Wings. In order to evolve the Flame Wings, he would need to gather a few rare scaled snakes. One of them was the scale serpent flood dragon. The scaled serpent flood dragon was an extremely special type of snake that had evolved. The Qilin serpent flood dragon had the bloodline of a Qilin and a dragon, but the offspring they gave birth to were very ordinary. Apart from their innate spiritual roots, there weren't too many rare abilities. However, the bloodline of the scale serpent flood dragon determined its rarity. As a natural variant, the scaled serpent flood dragon was naturally extremely difficult to cultivate. It was much more difficult for it to evolve into a flood dragon and then a dragon. If they didn't have any extraordinary fortuitous encounters, they would basically be stuck in the half-flood dragon, half-snake stage for the rest of their lives. The stage before evolving into a Jiao dragon was exactly what the Flame Wings needed. At this time, both the Qilin and dragon bloodlines appeared, but they were unable to merge. Now that Flame Wing had devoured dozens of different kinds of scale insects, its bloodline ability was growing stronger by the day. If Flame Wings could swallow the Qilin flood dragon serpent, he would be able to refine the Qilin and dragon bloodlines. Then he would be able to soar into the sky and activate the thin rock bloodline in his body. Of course, the rock wasn't the legendary divine bird in the legends, but it wasn't far off. Senior brother, rest well. You don't have to worry about anything else. Leave it to me. Junior brother. Fan Xin stopped and looked at Fangu. Break his arms and legs. Umitba. Fan Xin didn't comment and turned to leave. Minister, Saint Fan Xin from Wutai Mountain just met Monk Fangu. So what? We can't stop him. Zhou Yiren's tone was somewhat helpless. Just now, an insider from Wutai Mountain reported that 6 Brahmin monks and 24 Xian monks have all left the mountain and booked tickets to sorcery. Zhou Yiren's expression changed. He stood up abruptly and yelled in anger. What are the monks from Wutai Mountain doing? What are they trying to do? He hoped that Wutai Mountain would start a fight with Chen Zhao, preferably a conflict. Zhang Tianyi had mentioned Chen Zhao's strength more than once. If Chen Zhao started a conflict with Wutai Mountain, no matter who won in the end, the Taoist sects would benefit from it. But Zhou Yiren didn't plan on starting a full-scale conflict. If 1 or 2 or 3 monks started a fight with Chen Zhao, it wouldn't affect him much at most. But with so many monks coming down the mountain, what did it mean? Zhou Yiren was a little flustered. Quick, monitor the movements of those monks closely. Find out their intentions and locations. Zhou Yiren was a Taoist disciple, but he was still wearing the uniform of a civil servant. He was still on the countryside, and the country wouldn't allow any major upheavals. He had the final say in small matters, but if things got out of hand, if things got big, he would really screw things up, no matter what would happen in the end. The higher-ups would definitely hold him responsible. Knock, knock. Chen Zhao opened the door and saw a long-haired monk standing outside. Chen Zhao looked the monk up and down. The monk wore a white robe and had a string of Buddhist beads in his left hand. He held a Buddhist salute in his right hand. Ba, I am Fan Xin. Fan Xin? You're that monk Fan Xin from Wutai Mountain? Chen Zhao asked. Yes, I am. Oh, you're here to take revenge for Fangu. I'm here to resolve the grudge. Oh, then how much are you going to compensate me? Chen Zhao asked directly. He didn't believe in resolving grudges. He'd met so many enemies in the past. He'd never had the option to resolve grudges. They were all cultivators and didn't know how to lower their heads. They'd only act according to their own standpoint. He didn't think that the monks from Wutai Mountain had the awareness to let go of grudges. The old Fan he'd met before was said to be an enlightened monk. In reality, he didn't act like an enlightened monk at all. He was decisive and didn't show any mercy when he attacked. How much do you think is suitable? Fan Xin asked. $10 billion, Fan Xin said indifferently. Fan Xin said calmly, I can't take out that much money. Then please go ahead. Don't you want to hear how much I'm going to pay? I don't want to. You can't afford my price anyway. Chen Zhao shrugged. He didn't care what Fan Xin's attitude was or why he was here. This was the city center. He definitely couldn't fight here. Chen Zhao couldn't, and Fan Xin obviously couldn't either. So Chen Zhao didn't have to worry that Fan Xin would suddenly attack him. Sir, I'm here with sincerity. Chapter 3258. Okay, I felt your sincerity. You can go now. Mr. Chen, I hope we can turn enemies into friends. What do you think? I've already said that I've felt your sincerity. Chen Zhao's expression darkened. Then let's shake hands. Fan Xin reached out. Chen Zhao hesitated for a moment, but still reached out. But the moment he did, he felt a wave of power seep from Fan Xin's palm into his own. Chen Zhao suddenly retracted his hand and opened it. Chen Zhao's expression darkened immediately. There was a golden symbol on his palm. What is this? Fan Xin smiled. This is my sincerity. Chen Zhao's expression was cold. At the same time, he secretly used his power to counterattack, trying to disperse the symbol. But this power was completely different from Fangu's Buddhist power. When Chen Zhao's power surged over, it would break into pieces and then condense somewhere else. This power was turning Chen Zhao's power into Buddhist power. The transformation speed was also very fast. If this symbol continued to exist, if this symbol could infinitely transform Chen Zhao's power, then Chen Zhao's power would completely turn into Buddhist power. By then, Chen Zhao would be completely suppressed. Apart from Buddhist techniques, no one else could use Buddhist power. This was an extremely xenophobic power system. Fan Xin smiled faintly. It seemed that he felt that victory was already in his grasp. Chen Zhao took out his phone. Minister Zhou, what will happen if I destroy Wutai Mountain? What? Mr. Chen, what are you saying? Do you know what you're saying? I'm willing to donate $10 billion to the country, Chen Zhao said calmly. Zhou Yiren was silent for a moment. Then he asked, Mr. Chen, what happened? A monk plotted against me, Chun Zhao said. Fan Xian's originally calm expression turned gloomy. Mr. Chun, I need to report. Fan Xian also heard Zhou Yiren's voice on the other end. There was no direct rejection. Chun Zhao hung up and stared coldly at Fan Xian. Is this what you want? Do you know the consequences? Fan Xian asked. I know, Chun Zhao said calmly. Before my power is completely suppressed, I can kill all the monks on Wutai Mountain. Mr. Chun, as long as we stay out of each other's business, I don't think there's a need for us to fight to the death. Let's start with you. 6th level of primordial regression technique, origin form. Fan Xian's pupils suddenly shrank. The glass window in the living room shattered instantly. Chun Zhao reached out to grab Fan Xian. Brahma Xian was horrified. He sensed that he was about to die. Fan Xian hurriedly retreated and jumped out of the window. However, in the next instant, he discovered that an invisible wall was blocking his way. Chun Zhao looked at Fan Xian, not in a hurry to attack. Instead, he continued to make calls. Hello, Old John. Why do you have Old Zhang's phone? It's all your plan. He has been trapped in the seal for 10 days. Logically speaking, he should have come out long ago. I don't know why he hasn't come out after 10 days. There must have been an accident. Go and see him. Don't fool me. If something happens to me, nothing will happen to him. Old John didn't believe that something had happened to Zhang Tianyi. There was only one evil spirit king in the seal, and that so-called evil spirit king wasn't even trash before Zhang Tianyi. I need to talk to him, Chun Zhao said. Then there's nothing I can do. He's trapped in the seal now. One divine kingdom fragment, 3 minutes, Chun Zhao said. Okay, wait for me. Old John immediately went to the tomb and forcefully opened the seal. This thing was set up by him and the cardinal. He knew how to remove the seal. Of course, he didn't have the time to do that. So, he chose to forcefully break the seal. Old John rushed into the cave and saw Zhang Tianyi sitting cross-legged on the ground. But soon, Old John realized that something was wrong. Where was the evil spirit king? At this moment, a black shadow suddenly appeared behind Zhang Tianyi. That black shadow let out a sharp and shrill howl. Pope, hurry and save me. He's devouring me. Damn bastard. This bastard wants to devour me completely. Old John was shocked. This celestial master Zhang was too lewd. A celestial master of Dragon Tiger Mountain was devouring evil spirits? Who would believe such a thing if it was spread out? If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, Old John wouldn't have believed it. Just then, the evil spirit king's shadow suddenly disappeared. Zhang Tianyi opened his eyes and glanced at Old John. Why did you come down by yourself? I was afraid that something would happen to you. Huh? Zhang Tianyi was smart and believed his nonsense. Tell me, what's the matter? Old John handed the phone to Zhang Tianyi. Your phone is Chun Zhao's. Zhang Tianyi took the phone and immediately showed his true colors. Chun Zhao, you asterisk shoal. I said I didn't trick you. I didn't, but you tricked me. Now I'm possessed. Tell me what to do. I was tricked by a monk from Wutai Mountain. He said that you ordered it. Bullshit. He left a Buddha's 10,000 mark on my palm. Fan Xian? You met Fan Xian? Yes. How do I break this spell? No need. Break what? Keep it. Why? Since you were hit by the 10,000 Buddha mark, you should know its function, right? It transforms my power into Buddhist power. That's right, but Fan Xian picked the wrong target this time. Zhang Tianyi sounded very excited. Old John looked at Zhang Tianyi from his side. He was so fucking lively and spitting. How did he look like he was possessed? Keep the 10,000 Buddha mark, and I won't hold it against you for tricking me. Bullshit. If I keep it, I'll be completely suppressed. No, you're thinking too much. If the 10,000 Buddha mark can really suppress people without limit, then Buddhism would have conquered the Central Plains long ago. We Taoists wouldn't even have chance. Then what's going on? Nothing. It's nothing. That Brahma Xian will seal your cultivation base. Back then, I was tricked by him once. Even though my cultivation base was higher than his, I couldn't do anything about it. However, it's not like he doesn't have a prize for using that technique. The amount of power you're sealed is the same amount of magic power he has to pay. The difference in cultivation base between the two of you isn't something that a mere Brahma Xin can seal. So, as long as you keep the 10,000 Buddha seal, he will be considered to have crippled his own cultivation base. I see. Chen Zhao secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Then wouldn't it be easier for me to kill him? You want to kill him? Don't you know that he's the hope of Wutai Mountain? I'm still the hope of our village. Chapter 32:59. Right now, Fan Xin was trying to break through the barrier Chen Zhao had set up. The barrier couldn't be seen or touched. Fan Xin had a premonition. He obviously didn't want to wait for death. But Chen Zhao's world barrier was a manifestation of his power. To break through the barrier, he had to surpass Chen Zhao's power. If he had the ability, he wouldn't have to run. Chen Zhao's barrier slowly tightened. Fan Xin had less and less space to move around. He knew that he'd really met his match this time. The moment Chen Zhao activated his original form, he knew what kind of person he was facing. Last year, he'd sensed that someone had broken through to the enchanting realm. He'd also left his mark in the world and reached the ascension realm. He'd never thought that he'd meet Chen Zhao in this way. He'd thought that Chen Zhao was just an ordinary cultivator. Maybe he was stronger, but he definitely wouldn't connect Chen Zhao to the person who'd broken through to the enchanting realm. In his imagination, Chen Zhao could become the most powerful person in the world. He might not look like a sage, but he should at least have the demeanor of a master. But when Chen Zhao didn't reveal his aura, he was no different from an ordinary person. He hadn't expected to meet him here. He'd kicked the hardest iron plate in the world. The 10,000 Buddha seal might have an effect on Fan Xin, but it definitely couldn't suppress Fan Xion's full power, even if he had to use up all his Buddhist power. Zhang Tianyi was wrong about one thing. The Buddhist energy of the Buddhist sect was different from magic energy. Outsiders mistakenly thought that Buddhist power was Dharma power. In reality, they weren't the same thing. The cultivation method of the Buddhist sect also cultivated magic power. Buddhist power was a derivative. For Buddhist cultivators, if Dharma power was their main food, then Buddhist power was a supplement or a side dish. The power of Buddhism was extremely useful in cultivation and in battle. But Buddhist power was also indispensable. It could be less, but not none. If a Buddhist cultivator ran out of Buddhist power, then he'd lose control of his Dharma power and cultivation. This was an extremely terrifying thing for Buddhist cultivators. Chen Zhao wasn't in a hurry to kill Fan Xin. He just controlled her first and then checked his body's condition. A part of his power had turned into Buddhist power. Of course, it was only a small part of his full power. The mini heaven and earth barrier had shrunk to less than half a meter in diameter. Right now, it was difficult for Brahma to even raise her hand, and the barrier of the small world was still shrinking. Fan Xin had already lost control of her expression. Fan Xin lacked emotions to begin with, and she also cultivated the tranquil heart technique. He could control his emotions very well. Even when his family passed away in the secular world, he could still maintain his composure. However, this did not mean that he had no fear. Fear was also an emotion, but it was different from other emotions. In other words, fear was not only a neurological reaction, but also a physiological reaction. Other emotions are learned later in life. Only fear was something that humans were born with and mastered. At this moment, Fan Xin was terrified. This also caused his Tranquil Heart Sutra to become more and more chaotic. Chen Zhao realized that the 10,000 Buddha seal in his body was becoming unstable. It was as if Chen Zhao had found a fun toy. He slowed down the shrinking speed of the barrier between heaven and earth again. Fan Xion's expression began to change more and more. The more flustered he looked, the more unstable the 10,000 Buddha seal in Chen Zhao's body became. Brahma's palms tried to push open the barrier of heaven and earth. But his power was meaningless in the face of the barrier of the small world. Just then, the voice of the hotel customer service manager came from outside the door. Knock, knock, knock. Mr. Chen, are you inside? Mr. Chen, what happened inside? Clearly, The hotel had sensed something when Chun Zhao broke the window. Chun Zhao glanced at the door. The customer service manager had already used the hotel card to open the door because Chun Zhao had not responded. Chun Zhao used the small world to block the door so that the manager could not push it open. At the same time, Chun Zhao grabbed Fan Xin and flew through the window. Fortunately, it was nighttime and Chun Zhao was very fast. But Chun Zhao was in his original form now, so he was like a large light source. So he still left an obvious trail in the sky above the city. Chun Zhao flew toward the open sea. He flew for thousands of kilometers and found a desolate island. Then he stopped and threw Fan Xin on the ground. At this moment, Fan Xin was no longer as calm and collected as before. Only fear and helplessness were left. "Mr. Chun, we can talk. You misunderstood." Chun Zhao shook his head and said calmly, "There's no misunderstanding. I don't think it's a misunderstanding." Chun Zhao silently felt the 10,000 Buddha seal in his body. Right now, he did not even need to try to expel it. The seal was about to collapse by itself, but it would be a problem if it stayed in his body. Chun Zhao shook it hard. The seal did not completely collapse, but he could clearly feel that it had weakened a lot. It did not have the spirituality it had before. Right now, Chun Zhao felt that the seal was on its last breath. Chun Zhao pointed at Fan Xin. Fan Xin immediately put up a golden shield. While blocking Chun Zhao's attack, he was also sent flying. At the same time, Chun Zhao felt that the 10,000 Buddha seal had become even weaker. It seemed that Fan Xion's condition also affected the seal's strength. Chun Zhao slapped Fan Xin across the air. Fan Xin had just been hit by Chun Zhao. His qi and blood were already unstable. Before he could react, he was hit again. This made him spit out blood and fly back. In the past, Fan Xin had kept her hair long, and she really did look like a phoenix. But now, her hair was disheveled and her face was covered in mud and blood. "Mr. Chun, please listen to me," Chun Zhao slapped again. Fan Xion's chest caved in and he was sent flying again. "Mr. Chun." Chun Zhao kicked him again. "Ah!" Fan Xion roared. The Buddhist light on his body exploded, but he still could not block Chun Zhao's punch. Chun Zhao's original form was also golden. It looked like a Buddhist Dharma spell. Actually, there was a fundamental difference between the two. Fan Xion was making a final struggle. The golden light on his body grew several times stronger. But right now, Chun Zhao had activated his original form. In this form, Chun Zhao could really destroy the world. Chun Zhao punched Fan Xion again and again. With each punch, Fan Xion's aura weakened a bit. The 10,000 Buddha seal was also on the verge of collapse. If he had known that the 10,000 Buddha seal could be broken with such a violent method, Chun Zhao would not have to worry anymore. Now, he was not worried anymore. Compared to Mo Han's 9 Viscera techniques, the 10,000 Buddha seal was really weak. It was not as difficult as Chun Zhao had thought. Chapter 3260. The 10,000 Buddha seal was not weak at all. To most opponents, Brahma's innumerable Buddha seal was like a nuclear bomb. Take Zhang Tianyi, for example. When he had fought with Fan Xion, who was half a step into the Shangqing state, had forced Zhang Tianyi into a corner. The 10,000 Buddha seal was definitely a great achievement. 20 years ago, Zhang Tianyi was struck by the 10,000 Buddha seal. Even though his cultivation base was higher than Fan Xion's, at least half of his cultivation base was sealed. Fan Xion, on the other hand, used her Buddhist power. His cultivation was still there, so he could barely resist Zhang Tianyi's attack. Moreover, Zhang Tianyi wasn't as strong as he was now 20 years ago. That was why Zhang Tianyi and Fan Xion had fought to a draw back then. In fact, Zhang Tianyi lost face. If it had been a life-and-death battle, Zhang Tian could have torn Fan Xion's body apart in a matter of minutes. However, the confrontation back then was just an exchange, not life and death. However, Fan Xion had used the same trick again this time, but she had chosen the wrong target. If Chun Zhao was also in the Shangqing realm, Brahma might have succeeded. However, The difference between an ascendance level and a prime clarity level was far greater than the difference between a prime clarity level and a half-step prime clarity level. Even though Fan Xin had used all of her Buddhist power, Chun Zhao was still in ascendance. Fan Xin, on the other hand, had lost all of his Buddhist power. Although his cultivation was still at the Shangqing realm, his battle prowess was 30 to 40% weaker. How were they supposed to fight? There was already a huge gap between them. Through the 10,000 Buddha seal, this gap did not shrink. Instead, it widened. However, Chun Zhao had beaten Fan Xin up for so long. Brahma heart could really take a beating, an incredible amount of it, even if Chun Zhao didn't kill him. But after fighting for so long, Chun Zhao's power gradually increased. Fan Xin had managed to resist. Although he vomited blood, although he was covered in cuts and bruises, although his entire body was fractured, but Fan Xin said that she was still alive. The 10,000 Buddha seal in Chun Zhao's body had already disintegrated. However, Chun Zhao was interested in Fan Xin. What were the characteristics of his cultivation technique? Was he supposed to be able to take a beating? Chun Zhao was still increasing his power. Fan Xin coughed up blood as she struggled to survive. Chun Zhao's strength was so great that each punch could change the surrounding terrain. With every punch, the rock formation on the ground would change. And yet, Brahma's fleshly body had withstood it. It had to be said that Fan Xion's constitution surpassed that of most magical beasts. Even in the Western giant dragon clan, perhaps only the Dragon Emperor could be mentioned in the same breath as this bald donkey. Suddenly, Brahma heart erupted with golden light that was 10 times stronger than before. Chun Zhao took a few steps back. He was surprised that Brahma heart could still be strengthened. However, in the next instant, Fan Xin suddenly transformed into a huge rock, its entire body burning with golden flames, and soared into the sky. That speed was simply unimaginable. While Chun Zhao was distracted, Fan Xin had already flown into the clouds. Chun Zhao kicked the ground and chased after him. But the rock was just as fast as Chun Zhao. After all, even Chun Zhao himself didn't know what speed he could reach in his origin form. In this form, no instrument could measure his speed. Unless Chun Zhao went to a specialized organization and calculated it with satellite positioning. But in Chun Zhao's current state, Fan Xion's rock wasn't any slower than Chun Zhao. Fan Xin was also heavily injured. Of course, the rock was extremely fast, but it still couldn't shake Chun Zhao off. Two beams of golden light streaked across the sky. Neither had any intention of stopping. Chun Zhao hadn't killed Fan Xin before, but he didn't plan on letting him go. As they chased, the two actually crossed the Pacific Ocean. Fan Xin grew more and more anxious. He hadn't expected that his painstakingly calculated plan would allow him to turn into flame wings and escape. Unexpectedly, Chun Zhao's speed was also shockingly fast. It wasn't any slower than flame wings. Fan Xion's condition was already very bad. He couldn't afford to waste time. So, if he couldn't shake Chun Zhao off in a short time, then he would really be dead. Two beams of golden light streaked across the American continent and entered the Arctic Ocean. Then they flew past Greenland and entered the Atlantic Ocean. Just like that, the two chased endlessly. 1 lap, 2 laps, 3 laps. The two flew around the Earth a few times. They continued to chase at high speed. Chun Zhao also wanted to see how long Fan Xin could last. Chun Zhao's condition was very good. His origin form didn't burden him at all. He could easily maintain this state for 3 days and 3 nights. But what about Fan Xin? How long could he last? They flew for 2 hours. Finally, Fan Xin slowed down. Chun Zhao realized that Fan Xion's rock had decreased in altitude. They had already returned to Huaxia and were in the vicinity of Shanghai. What did Fan Xin want to do? If he wanted to use ordinary people to protect him, he should have landed in the city. Chun Zhao would definitely be wary. Why did he have to land in the suburbs? Just as Chun Zhao was hesitating, a golden net suddenly appeared in the sky. It appeared without warning and fell without warning. The golden net instantly enveloped Chun Zhao. This golden net was constructed from supreme Buddhist energy and a great divine ability. Chun Zhao gathered power for a second and suddenly tore. The golden net was torn instantly, but at that moment, a beam of blue light shot toward Chun Zhao. The blue light was extremely fast. Chun Zhao could only vaguely see that it was a rock. Boom! It seemed very similar to the golden rock that Fan Xin had transformed into. But the blue rock wasn't real. It exploded the moment it hit Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao flipped a few times in the air. It was very powerful, but it didn't hurt him. Chun Zhao hovered in the air. Looking down, he saw 30 monks appear below him. 24 of them formed a circle, each with a different posture. 6 old monks stood in the middle. One of them was supporting Fan Xin. Junior, are you okay? That person is extremely powerful. Be careful. Activate the 24 Heavens formation immediately, Fan Xin said worriedly. All the monks of the Brahmin generation were shocked. This was the first time they had seen Fan Xin in such a difficult situation, and he was in such a panic. Had his calming heart technique been broken? The monks looked up at Chun Zhao in the sky. Is he the one who hurt Junior Fangu? Yes. Fan Xin nodded with a serious expression. That's why I called for your help in a moment of desperation. Looks like he's really fierce. Disciples, hurry and activate the 24 Heavens formation. Chun Zhao immediately realized that his surroundings were twisting. This feeling was very similar to when a god activated a divine kingdom. Chun Zhao didn't stop the monks from activating the formation. He didn't know the exact situation. The best choice was to deal with the myriad of changes by remaining unchanged. Just then, Chun Zhao realized that this wasn't a divine kingdom. It was a world, an entire world. Blessing of the heavens, mercy of all things. In this world, the power of the world surged into Fan Xion's body. Fan Xion's injuries started recovering quickly. Chapter 32:61. At the same time, Chun Zhao felt the pressure from this world. Chun Zhao opened his eyes. The power of his origin form increased again, shaking off the pressure. This world was very similar to the feathered serpent god's world. It was even more thorough. This world had been completely refined by these monks. No, it should be left behind by the ancient Buddhists. 6 Brahmin monks surrounded Fan Xian. Junior, we're facing a great enemy. We can only borrow the power of the 24 Heavens formation. Fan Xian understands. Thank you, senior brothers. Fan Xian nodded. At the same time, he turned his head slightly to look at Chun Zhao in the air. No matter what, Chun Zhao was a huge problem. Fan Xian put his palms together. Senior brothers, please. Ba. Flames of different colors burst out from the bodies of the 6 Brahmin monks. Chun Zhao looked at the 6 monks in surprise. The blue flames on one of them were the same as the one that had attacked him earlier. The other 5 were red, purple, black, white, and green. The flames on the 6 monks started entering Fan Xion's body. At the same time, the flames on their bodies transformed into the shape of a rock. Chun Zhao understood. Each of them had a part of the rock soul in them. At the moment, they had all fused the remnant soul into Fan Xion's body. Clearly, Fan Xion also had a remnant soul. The remnant soul in his body should be the main one. After understanding the situation, Chun Zhao flew higher. Noticing Chun Zhao's actions, Fan Xion immediately said, "Stop him. Junior, calm down. We know what to do. You just need to calm down and focus on refining the flame-winged soul." Chun Zhao had already discovered something. The monks wanted to borrow the power of the world to fuse with the rock soul. Chun Zhao didn't know why the rock would split its soul into 7. However, it should be normal for one to be split into 7, and it should be abnormal for it to be combined into 1. If he stopped them from merging, the monks would definitely control the power of the world to disturb him. So, Chun Zhao decided to do the opposite. Chun Zhao rose into the sky and quickly absorbed the surrounding air and spiritual qi. A huge golden neutron star formed in the sky. In his origin form, Chun Zhao reached the extreme in all aspects. He could even form a neutron star with a few billion tons with a single thought. Then the second, the third, the fourth. Chun Zhao created dozens of golden neutron stars. The moment Chun Zhao's arm fell, dozens of golden neutron stars streaked across the sky. The 24 monks that formed the formation were shocked. They hurriedly controlled the power of the world to stop the falling golden neutron stars. Each of the dozens of golden neutron stars contained destructive power. After all, the 24 monks were not the true controllers of the world. They had only temporarily gained the authority to control the power of the world through the formation. Moreover, the 24 monks were unable to communicate with each other. Furthermore, even if they worked together and their minds were connected, it would be extremely difficult to stop all the golden neutron stars. One must know that there were dozens of them, not just a few. If they were facing only one person, they would have to work together. It was still possible to stop a neutron star, but how were they going to stop dozens of them? They had not discussed who would stop who. The power of the world was indeed enormous for an individual, but this was only a small world after all. Dividing it into 24 portions was still a bit of a stretch. Giant rock palms rose from all corners of the small world in an attempt to stop the golden neutron star. However, the first golden neutron star passed through and landed on the ground. The entire world shook. Then the second, the third. At this moment, the largest neutron star fell. While the 24 monks were focused on stopping the first wave of attacks from Chun Zhao was also preparing his real killing move. Chun Zhao turned into a giant meteor and smashed into the ground with terrifying speed. Boom! The sky changed colors, and the mountains and rivers collapsed. The land was shattered in the impact. The entire world was shaking. The power of the world became very unstable. The 24 monks spat out blood at the same time. Uncle, that person, Fan Xian and the other monks of the Fan generation were also shocked. They did not expect Chun Zhao to be so crazy, nor did they expect him to be able to do this. They had thought that they only needed to trap Chun Zhao in the 24 heavens formation. Then, they could use the power of the world to suppress Chun Zhao. No matter how strong Chun Zhao was, he wouldn't be able to fight against the power of the world. They did not expect Chun Zhao to be able to do it and do it. Compared to destroying the world, shouldn't it be easier to stop them from merging with the soul of the rock? But Chun Zhao did not follow their wishes. He did the exact opposite and chose to destroy the world, which seemed more difficult. To shake the foundation of the world instead of stopping them. He was a complete lunatic. Perhaps in their understanding, Chun Zhao was crazy. In reality, this was all because of the uniqueness of Chun Zhao's move. If it was just to stop Fan Xian from merging with the soul of the rock, he needed to fight against the power of the world. What was the power of the world? It was a giant world. It was almost impossible to break through such a huge, small world in a short period of time. Even if Chun Zhao used all his ultimate moves, he would not be able to break through in a short time. But Chun Zhao's move could. Meteor was Chun Zhao's killing move. This move was used to destroy the world. It was a move that Chun Zhao's employees had thought of for him, but had become Chun Zhao's most powerful killing move. Meteors were not suitable for smashing people. They were completely used to destroy the world. If he used this on Earth one day, Chun Zhao would be able to use it. If the world was destroyed, the employees of the animation company would definitely play a huge role. So, to Chun Zhao, destroying the world was far easier than breaking through the limits of the power of the world. Quick, change to another world, an old monk shouted anxiously. If Chun Zhao continued to destroy, the world would really be destroyed. Once the world was destroyed, the 24 heavens formation would be flawed. Plus, Fan Xian's fusion had reached a critical moment. The entire world was shaking. It was extremely difficult to use the power of the world to suppress the soul of the rock. It might even backfire on Fan Xian. They would not allow this to happen. Chun Zhao was surprised because the surrounding scenery changed again. A whole new world appeared before him. No way. Was Wutai Mountain so extravagant? There was actually a second small world. Wait, This formation was called the 24 Heavens Formation. Did it really have 24 small worlds? Chapter 3262. Even Chun Zhao couldn't destroy 24 worlds in a row. It wasn't hard to smash a meteor into the ground. It wasn't hard to smash 10 or even 100, as long as Chun Zhao had enough time. Chun Zhao could create a meteor shower, but even a meteor shower couldn't shake the power of the world. In order to shake the power of the world, Chun Zhao had to use his full strength. 24 small worlds. Chun Zhao would be exhausted. The second world was a vast ocean, an ocean that had no end in sight. At the same time, Fan Xian's rock soul had finished merging. With the suppression of the complete power of the world, the rock's soul couldn't resist. Fan Xian could control the rock's power freely. Fan Xian turned into the rock again. Hiss! The air seemed to be torn apart. Chun Zhao couldn't see the rock's movements clearly. His body was knocked thousands of feet away. He landed on the surface of the ocean, creating huge waves. Chun Zhao stood on the surface, calmly looking at the rock Fan Xian had turned into. It was very fast. It was definitely the fastest enemy Chun Zhao had ever faced. Even Chun Zhao couldn't match its speed, but he didn't use much strength. Chun Zhao tore off his tattered clothes. The rock attacked Chun Zhao again. Chun Zhao raised his arms. Hundreds of water columns rose from the surface of the ocean and shot at the rock. But the rock easily dodged the water columns with his fast and agile body. Hiss! The rock grabbed Chun Zhao's shoulder and lifted him up. Chun Zhao's body flipped uncontrollably into the air. The moment Chun Zhao steadied himself, the rock attacked again. Not just once, but hundreds of times in an instant. Chun Zhao hadn't been attacked like this in a long time. He couldn't fight back and was beaten up. The rock's speed was simply too fast. So fast that it was hard to react. Chun Zhao was covered in wounds. He recovered in a moment. The rock didn't attack immediately. Instead, he looked at Chun Zhao. You lost. The golden light on his body turned red. The next moment, the rock attacked again. It was also an unparalleled speed, but it was different from last time. This time, the attack hit Chun Zhao directly. Boom! A terrifying shockwave exploded at the moment of impact. Chun Zhao's body flew across the surface of the ocean. The surface was almost torn open. Chun Zhao stood up again, a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. Chun Zhao was injured. This time, he was really injured. The rock attacked again. Just then, Chun Zhao moved too. In an instant, the sea disappeared. In its place was lava everywhere. A world of flames. Chun Zhao released his inner world. The rock didn't stop. Instead, it continued charging at Chun Zhao. The fiery world seemed to have been sliced apart by the rock. That speed was truly unparalleled. But the next moment, the boundary of the fire world shrank even faster with Chun Zhao as the center. The moment the rock was about to hit Chun Zhao, the world of fire disappeared completely. Chun Zhao's original form disappeared. It was replaced by a lava-like form. Chun Zhao suddenly dropped down. The rock missed its attack and flew over his head. However, the rock quickly turned back and chased after Chun Zhao. Just as the rock was about to catch up to Chun Zhao suddenly paused. The inner world of fire appeared again. It completely enveloped the rock, enveloping it in a world of flames. The rock couldn't change its direction in time. It crashed into Chun Zhao's chest. Chun Zhao fell to the ground like a meteor. But this time, Chun Zhao stood up as if nothing had happened. Chun Zhao looked at the rock. You lost. I'm not afraid of flames, Fan Xian said in the form of the rock. I never hoped that the flames here could restrict you. What? Fan Xian's heart jumped. Suddenly, the flames on his body became chaotic. Gold, red, blue, white, black, purple, and green flames fluctuated continuously. World within a world. Fan Xian understood what Chun Zhao had done. Chun Zhao had used his own small world to trap him. Then Chun Zhao didn't need to do anything. He'd already fallen into the trap. Without the power of the outside world suppressing him, the soul of the rock was indeed uncontrollable. It started wreaking havoc in Fan Xian's body. No, The first thing to break out was a beam of red light. It was the remnant soul of the rock that represented the soul of flames. It was strengthened in this world of flames. Thus, its reaction was also the most intense. The red rock's soul circled the world, but had nowhere to go. Chun Zhao waved his hand. Come. The soul of the rock seemed to be summoned by Chun Zhao. It flew before Chun Zhao on its own. It fused into Chun Zhao's body without resistance. Chun Zhao took a deep breath. At the same time, he felt the memories that the soul had given him. There were 7 rock souls in total. Each was actually an individual. They'd hatched in different eras. They were not real rocks, but descendants of rocks. Every rock soul had a special characteristic. The monks of Wutai Mountain had been preparing since ancient times. They domesticated and fed the hatched rocks so that they could evolve. When they reached a bottleneck, they'd kill them, extract their souls, and seal them in the monk's body with a secret technique. This way, they could obtain the abilities of the rock. One had to admit that this was a very strange idea. Until now, the 7th rock was born. It was different from the other rocks. It was completely sealed in Fan Xian's body. Both its soul and body were sealed in Fan Xian's body. The original plan was to wait until the rock reached a bottleneck. Then, with the power of the world, it would absorb the souls of the other 6 rocks. Finally, it would break through and turn the 7th rock into a real, legendary rock. But this plan had been disrupted by Chun Zhao. Because of Chun Zhao, Fan Xian had to let the other 6 rock souls fuse into her body in advance. But the rock in Fan Xian's body hadn't truly reached a bottleneck. So, it couldn't fuse with the souls of the other 6. It could only suppress them with the power of the world, which was to forcefully fuse them. With the help of the world's energy, the other 6 rock souls could be considered to be at peace. But without the suppression of the power of the world, the other 6 rocks immediately rebelled. Soon, the 2nd rock soul rushed out of Fan Xian's body. Fan Xian's heart-wrenching roars couldn't stop the rock soul's resistance. Chun Zhao didn't hold back. He directly attracted the 2nd rock soul. Chun Zhao realized that the rock soul didn't resist him. The first one was very active. The second one only fused into his body after he released his aura. Chapter 3263. They could not only be suppressed by the power of the world, they also fed on the power of the world. Chun Zhao vaguely understood why there hadn't been any rocks in history. Perhaps it could only appear in the mythological era, because their food had never been flood dragons. It was the power of the world. They liked to eat the power of the world, but that did not mean they wanted to be suppressed by the power of the world. Therefore, the plans of the monks on Mount Wutai for thousands of years had always been wrong. There was no conflict between the 2 rock souls in Chun Zhao's body. They were not energy, they all had their own consciousness. Chun Zhao didn't have much, but he had a lot of world power. Chun Zhao's inner world was a small world. It also produced world power. He also had the serpent world, which also had endless world power. Therefore, he didn't need to be stingy with the power of the world. They ate as much as they could. It was enough for them to fill themselves to death. Moreover, it was different from Brahma Exant, who relied on suppression to obtain the power of the great rock. Chun Zhao didn't need to force them. All he had to do was exchange the power of the world and feed them. They would naturally be willing to lend their power to Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao opened his arms and released the aura of the rock soul. The rock soul in Fan Xian's body became even more restless and resisted even more fiercely. Fan Xian didn't feel relieved because the number of the rock souls was reduced. Instead, she felt even more uncomfortable. The soul of the rock rampaged through Fan Xian's body. Fan Xian became more and more alarmed. He didn't understand. This was Mount Wutai's secret method. Why could Chun Zhao control it? He didn't realize that the secret method of Mount Wutai was used in the wrong way. Chun Zhao only had 2 rock souls, but their auras were stronger than the 5 he had. Furthermore, he had even triggered the golden rock in his body. At that moment, the soul of the 3rd rock broke through Brahma's suppression and charged directly at Chun Zhao. The soul of the rock chirped happily and dove into Chun Zhao's body. On Chun Zhao's side, the aura of the rock's soul grew stronger. This feeling was similar to an animal releasing male hormones to attract other members of the opposite sex. Although this description was very strange, but the process was very similar. However, the number of rock souls in Fan Xian's body didn't make it any easier to suppress. Instead, it became even more intense, as if it wanted to perish together with Fan Xian. "That's enough," Fan Xian roared. The rock soul was calm for a moment, but in the next moment, Fan Xian fell to the ground in pain. Backlash. It had begun. Even the golden rock's flaming wings began to resist. To Brahma Xian, this was a disaster. The three rock souls broke through the shackles and entered Chun Zhao's body. At this moment, Fan Xian didn't have the slightest strength to resist, and she collapsed to the ground. His eyes lost their light. Chun Zhao walked toward Fan Xian and stretched out his hand. A strong aura of the rock soul was brewing in his palm. Fan Xian's body suddenly spasmed. Immediately after, the golden Buddha mark on his chest began to become extremely dazzling. In the next moment, the light disappeared, but the golden Buddha's seal began to bleed. A golden rock tore through Fan Xian's body and flew out. It was different from the previous 6 rocks. The great rock in front of him was not killed. Its body was still intact. Chun Zhao slowly reached out to touch the golden rock. The golden rock retreated a little, but slowly it sensed the aura of its kind on Chun Zhao. Moreover, the power of the world on Chun Zhao made it instinctively feel close. The golden rock suddenly turned into a beam of golden light and imprinted itself on Chun Zhao's palm. It left a golden mark on Chun Zhao's palm. It was different from the other 6 rock souls. This golden rock could evolve into a real mythical rock. Chun Zhao looked down at Fan Xian. He was already dead. Buddhism was all about mercy. However, the actions of this group of monks had nothing to do with mercy. Chun Zhao was somewhat disgusted. With a wave of his hand, he completely destroyed Fan Xian's body. Putting away his inner world, the 6 rocks and the golden rock immediately settled down in the flame world. They didn't have any special requirements for the environment. They just had a special need for food. They only needed the power of the world. This wasn't something normal people could provide. The monks saw Chun Zhao appear, but Fan Xian didn't. They all felt that something was wrong. "Quick, change the world, the power of the rock." A beam of light flashed. A dozen monks were instantly crushed by Chun Zhao. The remaining monks also spat out blood. The 24 Heavens formation also disintegrated. They couldn't change the world anymore. At least, they couldn't activate the formation until they had 24 monks who knew formations. But now they had to face Chun Zhao. Monk Fan Xian asked me to pass on a message. All the monks looked at Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao smiled. He said he misses you guys and hopes you can accompany him. All the monks were infuriated. "Demon, I'll fight you to the death. Fellow martial brothers and martial nephews, let's vanquish the demon together. Kill." But they were facing Chun Zhao. The gap between them was vividly displayed at this moment. In the next second, all the monks were destroyed. They were facing Chun Zhao, who was ready to kill. Chun Zhao didn't hold back anymore. He wouldn't give them a chance to resist. Returning to the main plane, Chun Zhao exhaled deeply. Just then, his phone rang. "Hey, Mr. Chun, I reported your request to the higher-ups. They don't agree." On the other end of the phone, Zhou Yiren sounded a little regretful. He didn't know if it was because he hadn't taken the chance to destroy Wutai Mountain, or was it because he wasn't able to receive the $10 billion donation. Really? I think so too. I was too impulsive. It's a famous mountain in China. I should show some respect. It's good that you think like that. Oh, where's Monk Fan Xian? You want to serve the Buddha, right? Fine. Even an idiot could understand what Chun Zhao meant. But Zhou Yiren was also secretly shocked. It was Fan Xian. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he was the top Zen, just like Zhang Tiany's position in Taoism. No one objected to Fan Xian being the top Zen. But now, Chun Zhao had sent him to meet the Buddha. How could Zhou Yiren not be shocked? If there's nothing else, I'm going to hang up. Okay, bye. I look forward to the communication between the East China Special Intelligence Department and the North American Supernatural Organization. Bye. As soon as Chun Zhao hung up, his phone rang again. This time it was the hotel. Chun Zhao's room had been destroyed, but he was nowhere to be seen. So, the hotel thought that something had happened to him. They even called the police. Chapter 3264. Chun Zhao was at the police station now. An old acquaintance of his sat opposite him, rolling. She was the policewoman he'd met when he'd returned last time. Hello, Xiao Luo. Who's talking to you? I'm asking you a question. Didn't you hear me? I heard you. I don't know what happened either. A group of strangers barged into my room and put a sack over my head. I don't know what happened next. When I woke up, I was in the wilderness. There was no one around. The surveillance shows that there wasn't a group of people at all. During the incident, only a long-haired man entered your room. Then you and the long-haired man disappeared together. That's my friend. I'm worried about him too, Chun Zhao said helplessly. You don't look worried at all. Do you really have to write worried on your face? Correct your thoughts. You're a suspect now. No, I'm a victim. Chun Zhao immediately corrected Rolling. You can't interrogate me with this attitude. I'm only here to give a statement, not to record it. Rolling felt like she couldn't control her little universe anymore. Chun Zhao was asking for a beating, but she knew that she couldn't do anything to him, unless she could find concrete evidence. Chun Zhao was related to the man's disappearance. However, there was no footage of the man on the surveillance. When a man came to find Chun Zhao, he seemed to have purposely avoided the camera. Why did you come back? That's weird. I'm a legal Chinese citizen. Do I need a valid reason to come back? Besides, I entered the scene legally. You should be able to find out about this. If you really need a legitimate reason, I can ask my company to issue a proof of official business. Rolling was speechless. She hated facing intellectuals the most, because most of the time, people like Chun Zhao were rebellious. Just then, Chun Zhao's lawyer arrived. This lawyer was also an old acquaintance of Chun Zhao's in China. He bailed Chun Zhao out last time too. He was a lawyer from Shanghai. Wei Ling, Mr. Chun, hello. Ms. Luo, we meet again. Lawyer Wei, you're a bit early. I'm catching up with Ms. Luo. I'm sorry, but you can catch up after I'm done with the paperwork. Wei Dan was a smart person and knew how to continue. Ms. Luo, can I take Mr. Chen away now? Rolling glanced at Chun Zhao unwillingly. Go. Don't come back. If you do, I'll definitely make you suffer. Chun Zhao was speechless. He left the police station and got in a Wei Dan's car. Lawyer Wei, do you take on commercial law cases? Wei Dan was stunned. Mr. Chun, do you need legal advice for your business? Yes. Recently, I have a business deal with Director Liu of Tianhong Corporation. We have reached a general agreement, but we haven't signed the contract yet. Some of the details, contracts, and things related to domestic laws need to be handled by a professional lawyer. My own lawyer is overseas and isn't suitable for this project. That's why I asked Lawyer Wei if he has this kind of business, or if I can find a lawyer in Lawyer Wei's firm to handle business. Of course, if Mr. Chen has such a request, I would be honored. All right then, I'll entrust this matter to Lawyer Wei. Wei Ke also had a law firm of her own. He worked with Alex's law firm. That was why Wei Ke had appeared when Chun Zhao went in last time. Wei Ke knew that Chun Zhao was rich. He was happy to work with Chun Zhao. Oh, is there any trouble with my case this time? No problem. Wei Ke didn't ask why a living person would disappear in Chun Zhao's room. Are you sure? Regardless of whether it's international or domestic laws, they all have a common characteristic, which is that they can only prove guilty and not innocent. What do you mean? It's like issuing a certificate. Domestic police stations won't issue a certificate of innocence to anyone, even if the person has never committed a crime in his life. It's because innocence can't be determined from cause and effect, but guilt is obvious. If you've been caught, it proves that you've committed a crime. If the police want to prove Mr. Chen's guilt, they have to prove that the person's disappearance is related to Mr. Chen. Chun Zhao understood now. This meant that if they couldn't find the cause and effect, then they couldn't prove Chun Zhao's guilt. The police couldn't make guesses about this case, so they couldn't prove the cause and effect. This couldn't prove Chun Zhao's innocence. It just couldn't prove that he was guilty. Thank you for your answer, Lawyer Wei. You're welcome. Answering clients is also my job scope. Oh, Lawyer Wei, if you know someone's guilty, especially when it's an extremely bad crime, will you still defend that person with all your strength? Yes. Wei nodded. Chun Zhao fell silent. He just asked casually, but he soon realized that he couldn't continue. Mr. Chun, under the modern law, both the plaintiff and the defendant need a chance to prove their innocence. The principle of modern law is that it's better to let go of 1,000 wrongly than to kill one wrongly. Also, don't question the authority of the domestic legal system. If it's really done by a person, the suspect can't escape punishment in most cases. What if the person is rich? I mean, someone as rich as me. Mr. Chun, why do you think so many people who commit economic crimes flee abroad every year? Wei Dan was a very logical person. Even when Chun Zhao asked some sensitive questions, Wei Dan could still answer them fluently. Moreover, his answers wouldn't make Chun Zhao uncomfortable. What made Chun Zhao feel that Wei Ku was reliable wasn't his legal knowledge. It was his principles. He was a person with his own principles. This made Chun Zhao feel that Wei Ku was someone he could work with. If his lawyer was someone without principles, Chun Zhao wouldn't be at ease. For example, Alex. Chun Zhao chose Alex to be his personal lawyer. It wasn't just because she was Green's sister. It was also because of her principles. Every year, Alex would accept many legal requests. Wei Ku sent Chun Zhao to the hotel entrance. Louis Ba also got out of the car. He'd come to find Chun Zhao and coincidentally met him at the entrance. President Chun, you're finally back. I heard that you were attacked at the hotel. How is it? Are you okay? Chapter 3265. Smiling, Chun Zhao shook his head. It's fine. Maybe it's just a prank. It's good that you're fine. It's good that you're fine. Boss, you're a boss, but you didn't bring a bodyguard. Aren't you being hated? Liu Yibo said with concern. His words were somewhat polite. Of course, he was genuinely concerned. Most importantly, if something happened to Chun Zhao, who could he ask for his investment? This was not just a few dollars, but billions of dollars of investment. Even the world's largest venture capital firms would take half a year to come up with an evaluation. There were many rich people in the country, but there weren't many who could come up with so much money in such a short period of time. There were even fewer who were willing to take it out and vote for him. Do you want me to introduce you to a few companies that specialize in this kind of security business? Absolutely professional. Thanks, but I really don't need it. Chun Zhao waved his hand. If he really needed help, he would look for Mo Han. You really don't need it? There's really no need, Chun Zhao said, smiling. All right, if you have something to say, just say it. I don't dare to say that I can command hundreds of people in the country, but basically, as long as it doesn't involve the government, I can say something. Of course, if there is a need, I will not stand on ceremony with you, Boss Liu. Let's go, I'll welcome you. Chun Zhao did not refuse. This time, Liu Yibo was treating because of what happened last time. It was because of the animations company. Although it was a misunderstanding, it was not Liu Yibo's intention. However, Liu Yibo still needed to use this opportunity to explain. Jin Si gave Liu Yibo a way out. For a businessman like Liu Yibo, he was most afraid that his business partner would hold a grudge against him. This was one of his business habits. If Chun Zhao really had to hold on to this, Liu Yibo might really consider giving up on Chun Zhao. After that, Liu Yibo introduced the animation company to an office building in Shanghai CBD. Moreover, he wasn't introducing the office building of Tianhong Corporation this time. A businessman like him was straightforward. Chun Zhao was willing to trust his sincerity. After returning to the hotel staff gave him another room. For the hotel, they didn't know what happened, but they felt it was their fault. After all, with Chun Zhao's identity, it was their fault, although they didn't know what was going on. But the guest was missing in the hotel. That could only be their fault. Mr. Chun, do you have time today? Yes, when and where? Eastern Zhejiang. You'd better be there before midnight. Eastern suburbs? Where? Forget it. I'll go pick you up. Zhou Yiren was impatient too. He went straight to Chun Zhao's hotel and dragged him to the eastern suburbs. In the car, Zhou Yiren couldn't help but ask, "Mr. Chun, where is Fan Xin? What monk Fan Xin?" Zhou Yiren was speechless. "Are you pretending to have amnesia?" However, he did not ask this question to seek justice for Fan Xin in the first place. Since Chun Zhao was pretending to have lost his memory, Fan Xin was probably dead. "The pillar of Mount Wutai is also missing," Zhou Yiren said. "I'm not interested in a bunch of monks," Chun Zhao said nonchalantly. "All right." Zhou Yiren decided to change the topic. Chun Zhao clearly didn't want to talk about the monks from Wutai Mountain anymore. He was probably afraid that there would be trouble in the future. This matter couldn't be hidden even if he mentioned it. After all, Mount Wutai was not a small sect. Fan Xin and the 20 or so pillars had all disappeared in one go. The remaining monks on Mount Wutai would definitely not sit still. Even the entire Zen sect would explode. When they arrived at the eastern suburbs, there were many members of the Special Intelligence Division. They were busy setting up the formation. Xiao Jiaqiu was also watching from the side. When she saw Chun Zhao and Zhou Yiren, she immediately came over to greet them. "Mr. Chun, Minister Zhou." Chun Zhao nodded, his attitude rather cold. On the other hand, Zhou Yiren and Xiao Jiaqiu started chatting. But they were not the same kind of people. So, their topics were also very different. Speaking of which, Xiao Jiaqiu could be considered someone from the supernatural world now. But in the end, she was more used to her celebrity identity. She had only agreed to help Zhou Yiren to solve her own problems. Xiao Jiaqiu was a very realistic person. The benefits were clearly divided. Was she obedient before Chun Zhao now? It was only because she needed his help. Chun Zhao had only agreed to help because of Zhou Yiren. Chun Zhao was more interested in the members of the Special Intelligence Division. Chun Zhao observed the events at the scene. He discovered the difference between the Special Intelligence Division and the Supernatural Organization. The members of the Special Intelligence Division weren't weak. A few were especially outstanding and might even be stronger than Gaia and the others. Also, their execution was something the Supernatural Organization members couldn't compare to. Perhaps it was because Chun Zhao was an undisciplined person himself. West himself wasn't a hardliner, was he? Managing the Supernatural Organization was also a free-range management. So, the Supernatural Organization members didn't have much discipline, apart from Chun Zhao's words. Plus, with Chun Zhao's strength, there weren't any problems. In terms of execution, there were too many members of the Special Intelligence Division. They weren't soldiers, but their management system was very much like the army. Once an order was given, it had to be completed. It wasn't like the ambiguity of the Supernatural Organization. Even if they failed, Chun Zhao would cover for them. Plus, they had a clear division of labor and a wide range of knowledge in the supernatural world. Almost every member of the Special Intelligence Division knew how to look at the diagram when setting up the complicated formation. It wasn't like the Supernatural Organization, outstanding in a certain aspect, but mediocre in other aspects. Was there a single advantage? Erudite had its advantages too. But in a group battle, if the two sides were about the same in power, Erudite would definitely have a greater advantage. For example, Erudite, the most representative was Zhang Tianyi. Biflo was second. They were people who could turn their magic knowledge into power. Chun Zhao thought about the communication between the two organizations that he'd mentioned to Zhou Yiren. It seemed like he had to be serious. Was it just a formality? Now it seemed. The Special Intelligence Division's level was indeed much higher than the supernatural organizations. This level wasn't just reflected on individuals. It was also reflected on the whole. They could make the dozen people present into one. Each person could set up a part of the formation without interfering with each other. The supernatural organization was like that. If two people fought together, they could cooperate well. If there were more than two people, they would probably start fighting among themselves first. So, when fighting, it was basically two people working together. Sometimes, they would even fight alone. As for management, Chun Zhao and West weren't qualified managers. Even if they learned the management of the Special Intelligence Division, they probably wouldn't be able to learn it. Even if they did, they wouldn't be able to implement it. Chapter 3266. After dark, the site was still being set up. It wasn't until the wee hours of the morning that the preparations for the formation were finally completed. This was not a pure array formation. There were also some unknown instruments and equipment set up in the surroundings. Okay, we just have to wait until midnight to officially start. Why do we have to wait until midnight? Chen Zhao asked. For that snake demon to evolve into a flood dragon, it needs the right time, the right place, and the right people. Not a single one can be missing. The right time refers to the time. The right place refers to the environment and array formation here. And the right people refers to you. Tomorrow is the opening day, where yin and yang meet. What Genesis Day? I've never heard of it. It's like the 24 solar terms. In the spiritual world, there are also spiritual qi solar terms. Some seasons have more yang and less yin, while others have more yin and less yang. Genesis Day is the first day of the spiritual qi solar terms. It's like the first day of the new year after New Year's Eve. Genesis Day is the first day when spiritual qi turns from more yin and less yang to more yang and less yin. It's the first day when yin and yang are reversed. Tell me more about the spiritual qi solar terms. After Genesis Day is bright yang at the beginning of April. At that time, yang qi reaches a high level. June is full yang, and June is the month when yang qi is the most abundant. It lasts until July 15th. Other than the Ghost Festival, it's also called yin opening in the spiritual world. From then on, yin qi will gradually increase. Mid-autumn will be perineum yin, and November 5th will be full yin. Zhou Yiren paused and said, Primordial opening, bright yang, full yang, opening yin, perineum yin, and full yin are the 6 solar terms of the spiritual energy solar terms. Nowadays, few cultivators know about these solar terms. However, in ancient times, some cultivators would cultivate or make breakthroughs according to the spiritual energy solar terms, which would indeed be helpful to their cultivation and realms. For example, primordial opening and yin opening, where the extreme of yang produces yin, or when the extreme of yin produces yang, are important turning points for breakthroughs and enlightenment. Another example is that if one's cultivation is of the yang attribute or yin attribute, one can also allocate the cultivation time according to the spiritual energy solar terms. Although Chen Zhao's cultivation leaned towards yang, he had never paid attention to things like the spiritual qi solar terms. Now that he heard Zhou Yiren's words, he felt enlightened. Although he wouldn't be able to break through immediately after listening to it, he could try his best to cultivate in accordance with the solar terms in the future. All right, Mr. Chen, go over there and try the device. See if the input of magical power is smooth. Chen Zhao nodded and walked to the device. There was a pair of palm prints on it. Place your hands on the palm print, and then use the smallest amount of mana output. Chen Zhao obeyed and began to pour out his mana. The moment Chen Zhao inserted his magic power, the formation lit up. Mr. Chen, you can increase your dermic power output. Chen Zhao increased the output, and the formation grew brighter. The other personnel in charge of monitoring the equipment and formation made an okay gesture. The magic power attribute is positive. The array is operating normally and the power output is stable. Just follow this output frequency, the monitoring staff said. However, it needs to be maintained for at least an hour, possibly longer. Zhou Yiren looked at him. Mr. Chen, I need 1 or more than an hour. Do you have a problem? If you have any questions, it's best to bring them up now, so that we can make backup plans. Sure, no problem. All right then. Zhou Yiren checked the time. 1 minute countdown. Xiao Jiaqiu, stand in the eye of the formation and summon the snake demon. It's about to start. Xiao Jiaqiu stood in the eye of the formation and summoned the 2-legged snake. The 2-legged snake couldn't be any more well-behaved here. Apart from Chen Zhao, there were many people here that it couldn't afford to offend. Even if it was Zhou Yiren, who looked so ordinary. He was also very strong. Xiao Jiaqiu still didn't know the exact process. So, she seemed a bit nervous. Countdown, 10 seconds, 9, 8, countdown, 3, 2, 1, start. Chen Zhao started to input his magic power. The formation lit up, and Zhou Yiren commanded from the side. Snake demon, activate your bloodline and begin evolution. The two-legged snake mumbled, I'm not a snake demon. Why do you keep calling me snake demon? However, it didn't dare to let others hear it. It just complained. The two-legged snake's scales started to change color from green. The color became darker and darker, as if it was congested with blood. It turned dark red and glowed faintly. Chun Zhao's magic power was channeled into the formation through the device, and then into Xiao Jiaqio. It then flowed into the two-legged snake through Xiao Jiaqio. Xiao Jiaqio and the two-legged snake were connected by blood, so they wouldn't reject each other's magic power. The two-legged snake straightened its body in front of it. However, the evolution process wasn't comfortable. It could even be described as extremely painful. Many magical beasts and demons died because they couldn't endure the evolution process. The two-legged snake knew the consequences, so it persisted. If it relaxed even a little, it would be smashed to pieces. It had to keep absorbing magic power to stimulate the bloodline in its body. Bloodline and constitution were two different things, but they complemented each other. Bloodlines forged a stronger physique, and a stronger physique gave birth to a stronger bloodline. It had been half an hour, but the two-legged snake was still the same. There weren't any obvious changes in its body. Zhou Yiren cursed silently. This guy's talent was really bad. No wonder it couldn't evolve when it was stuck on two legs. Mr. Chun, the evolution process might take longer this time. Do you have any problems? Not at the moment. Since Chun Zhao had agreed, he wouldn't leave halfway. The length of time didn't make much difference to him. Finally, after another half an hour, a tumor grew out of the two-legged snake's head. The tumor grew longer slowly. Then the outer layer of skin started aging and fading, revealing a single horn. It finally had some characteristics of a flood dragon. But just then, a patch of dark clouds appeared in the sky. Zhou Yiren's heart skipped a beat. What's going on? Didn't you check the weather? Why are there dark clouds all of a sudden? Chun Zhao looked at Zhou Yiren. What happened? Mr. Chun, if it rains, you can stop using magic power. What? If I stop now, the snake's evolution will definitely fail. With the amount of magic it absorbed, it and Xiao Jiaqio will definitely explode. I can't help it. If it rains later, there'll definitely be lightning. I know some lightning spells. I'm fine. Chun Zhao had experienced the thunder tribulation himself when he was breaking through to the ascension level. Even if the snake's evolution triggered lightning, it wouldn't be stronger than his own, so he wasn't worried. Mr. Chun, are you really fine? Chapter 32:67. I'm fine, but are you sure they can handle the lightning? Lightning wasn't something that could only be triggered in certain realms. It also had a small chance of happening when breaking through to other realms. However, if there was a thunderstorm, it would happen very often. Today was also the day of the opening, when yin and yang alternated. Spiritual qi was already in an unstable state. If it was attracted by the serpent qi and encountered a thunderstorm again, there was almost a 100% chance that lightning would strike them. Chun Zhao didn't think that such low-level lightning could harm him. After all, he'd gone through 2 complete lightning strikes. However, whether Xiao Jiaqio and the two-legged snake, who had yet to fully evolve, could withstand the attack was up to fate. If they were lucky enough to win a 5 million lottery, it would be fine. On the other hand, that was about it. Mr. Chun, can you really handle it? Chun Zhao's cultivation was high, but it didn't mean that he could. One had to know that many experts had died while helping others take on the heavenly lightning. So, Zhou Yiren wasn't sure if Chun Zhao could handle it. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. Then what if I attract the lightning to you? Is that okay? Chun Zhao hesitated. He could handle it, but it didn't mean that he had to take the blame for Xiao Jiaqio and the two-legged snake. He was here to help, not to take the blame. Mr. Chun, the Special Intelligence Division will take the blame for Wutai Mountain, Zhou Yiren said. Chun Zhao was surprised. Is the snake demon that important? Mr. Chun, do you agree? Yes. Zhou Yiren smiled. He'd recruited Xiao Jiaqio to expand their influence. After the two-legged snake evolved into a dragon, they'd gain a lot in terms of strength. At the same time, they'd be a brand. Together with Xiao Jiaqio, they'd have a good reaction. So, protecting the two was an important strategic deployment for the Special Intelligence Division. Of course, if they were worthy of the Special Intelligence Division taking the blame and going against Wutai Mountain, that wasn't worth it. But even without today's incident, he'd let the Special Intelligence Division take the blame. Because this was Dragon Tiger Mountain's intention. To put it simply, this time, the Celestial Master Sect of Longhu Mountain wanted to take advantage of the fact that Wutai Mountain's combat power was weak. Then, he would use the Special Intelligence Department to weaken the influence of Mount Wutai. If the group of old monks from Mount Wutai were still here, Zhou Yiren would definitely not dare to accept this order from Mount Longhu's sage sect. But now, all the old monks on Mount Wutai were dead, and the remaining young monks were useless. Then he spread the news that monks from Mount Wutai had come out to do bad things. Then they were annihilated by the Special Intelligence Department. What would happen to Mount Wutai and the Zen sect? Come out to seek justice from the Special Intelligence Department? The Zen sect would definitely be afraid of the Special Intelligence Division, which could completely destroy Mount Wutai. Besides, he was already dead, so the Zen sect naturally wouldn't stand up for Mount Wutai. As for the group of young monks from Mount Wutai, if they dared to come out, they would be killed. Of course, not everyone in the Special Intelligence Department was there to take the blame. The Special Intelligence Department's reputation would naturally rise because of this incident. After all, he could rub the head of the Zen sect against the ground. Naturally, no one dared to underestimate the combat power of the Special Intelligence Department. In the past, the Special Intelligence Division's position in Huaxia's supernatural world had been rather awkward. On one hand, it was because it was a department of the Imperial Court. Many people in the spirit world viewed them as the Imperial Court's lackeys. That was why there weren't many experts in the Special Intelligence Department. Most of them belonged to the middle class. They weren't as good as the top, but they were better than the bottom. Whenever they encountered a large sect, they had to admit defeat. For example, when the monks from Mount Wutai had come to cause trouble for Chun Zhao, they had to pretend to be blind and say that they hadn't seen anything. But now, things were different. The old monk was dead, so there was no need to worry about the young monk. Chun Zhao naturally didn't know the details. Did he really think that the Special Intelligence Department was willing to pay so much just to protect this person and Snake? Mr. Chun, this is the lightning rod. Hold it in your hand. 10 minutes later, bean-sized raindrops started falling from the sky. This was also a sign of a heavy rain. Soon, the rain started pouring down. The rain grew heavier and the wind grew stronger. In the wind and rain, the black clouds in the sky started surging with lightning. Chun Zhao continued to press the device with one hand, continuing to inject mana. With the other, he held the lightning rod high above his head. Boom! A pillar of light descended from the sky. A huge sound was accompanied by a huge impact. In the center of the formation, Xiao Jiaqio and the two-legged snake were frightened by this terrifying scene. They had never seen such terrifying lightning. Moreover, it didn't strike the ground, but a person's body. Fortunately, Chun Zhao was at least 50 meters away from them. Otherwise, they would have been affected by the lightning just now. But even so, under such a powerful sound and light, the impact produced was still shocking. Xiao Jiaqio's hair stood up. She kept shivering in the rain. The two-legged snake wasn't much better than her. It had been forced to do something beyond its ability. If it had known that there would be such a terrifying lightning tribulation, it wouldn't have agreed. It wouldn't have agreed, even if it was beaten to death. But now, it couldn't do anything. It only had two choices now: evolve successfully and become the dragon it dreamed of, or die here. There was no third choice. The lightning disappeared. Chun Zhao stood where he was unmoving. Even the device before him wasn't damaged. But the ground Chun Zhao was standing on was cracked like a spider web. Xiao Jiaqio and the two-legged snake stared at Chun Zhao, dumbfounded. It was like looking at a monster. Focus your mind and activate your bloodline, Chun Zhao said indifferently. If you fail, I'll stew you regardless of whether you're dead or alive. The two-legged snake's legs turned to jelly. It realized that Chun Zhao was the scariest. Just then, another bolt of lightning was brewing in the sky. Chun Zhao looked up. The white rock soul in his body was stirring. Chun Zhao called the various rocks in his body colors and added the word bird. For example, he called the white rock soul white bird. Chun Zhao released white bird at the same time. White bird turned into white light and shot into the clouds. Coincidentally, the lightning fell and the two beams of white light collided. They didn't dissipate. Instead, white bird absorbed the lightning and was still flying higher. Zhou Yiren was surprised. What was that? Because white bird was too fast. He could only see a beam of white light rise from Chun Zhao's body. He thought it was some kind of spell. White bird swam in the thunderclouds. The lightning didn't fall anymore. Everyone could only see white light swimming in the thunderclouds. The two-legged snake's transformation into a dragon was very slow, so the thunderclouds didn't disperse for a long time. White bird seemed to be absorbing the lightning in the thunderclouds to strengthen its spiritual body. But now white bird only had a spiritual body. It didn't have a body, so it couldn't become a real mythical rock. To become a mythical rock, one had to have a body and a bloodline. Just a soul wasn't enough. Chapter 3268. The two-legged snake used all its strength to transform into a flood dragon. Actually, even without Chun Zhao's threat, it had no way out. This was a formation that could only advance and not retreat. It did not seem like a natural evolution in the past. It was not a problem for him to be stuck in the middle of transforming into a flood dragon. The magic power that he was using to stimulate his bloodline was not his own. If he did not succeed, then the magic power would cause his body to explode. However, it was easier said than done to evolve into a flood dragon. What he lacked was not magic power. No matter how much magic power he used, the ultimate goal was to stimulate his bloodline. However, if one's bloodline wasn't enough, then it wasn't something that could be made up with magic power. If he could easily transform into a Jiao, he wouldn't have ended up as a half-baked Jiao back then. Nearly 3 hours had passed since he started transforming into a Jiao. Zhou Yiren watched from the side, shaking his head repeatedly. I almost gave up suspiciously. Sure enough, mud couldn't hold up a wall. Looks like I'll have to find another celebrity. Chun Zhao looked at the two-legged snake. Then, he looked at Xiao Jiaqio, who was in the center of the formation. At this moment, Xiao Jiaqio also seemed a little weak. A large amount of her blood essence was being absorbed by the two-legged snake. During the transformation process of the two-legged serpent, apart from absorbing magic power, it also absorbed qi and blood. But Chun Zhao only provided mana, not blood. It could only absorb Xiao Jiaqio's qi and blood. Of course, this was a passive process that neither side could control. According to Zhou Yiren's calculations, within 2 hours, he would evolve as much as he could. It wouldn't affect Xiao Jiaqio at all. It wouldn't be a big deal to have a bit of blood qi sucked away. At most, it would be a serious illness. They also had ways to replenish Xiao Jiaqio's lost qi and blood, but had been more than 3 hours. The two-legged snake did not succeed, nor did it fail. The one who was most affected was, of course, Xiao Jiaqio, whose life force was constantly being sucked out. Finally, Xiao Jiaqio couldn't hold on any longer and fell to the ground. At this moment, White Bird had absorbed most of the heavenly lightning in the sky. It was also full. However, after the White Bird came out of the thundercloud, it didn't return to Chun Zhao's body. Instead, it charged towards Xiao Jiaqio in the eye of the formation. Chun Zhao frowned. He didn't know what White Bird wanted. The White Bird suddenly burrowed into Xiao Jiaqio's body. Xiao Jiaqio bounced up. His entire body was emitting a powerful electric current. Then, a powerful electric current rushed into the two-legged snake's body. The two-legged snake suddenly straightened up from its weakened state. The White Bird flew out of Xiao Jiaqio's body and circled above the array before returning to Chun Zhao's body. When Zhou Yiren was watching from the side, his eyes revealed a trace of surprise. "Minister, what is that?" "I don't know. It seems to be some kind of thunder." What thunder? Never heard of it. Most of the lightning in this world is tribulation lightning that can exterminate all living beings. Only a small portion of it is the lightning divine ability of some living beings. This kind of divine ability contains the power of life and death. It can kill living beings, but it can also save lives. Because it cannot be cultivated, it can only be possessed by certain living beings, so it is rare in the world. Chun Zhao was far away from Zhou Yiren, but he heard what Zhou Yiren said. Chun Zhao immediately used Whitebird's power to release another bolt of lightning at Xiao Jiaqiu. Xiao Jiaqiu's body twitched again, and she stood up again. Although he hadn't fully recovered, his aura was much more stable. The white lightning also flowed into the two-legged snake through Xiao Jiaqiu's body. Finally, two sarcomas grew out from the two-legged snake's lower abdomen. It was like the horn that had grown out earlier. Mr. Chun, increase your magical power output. Success or failure depends on this. Chun Zhao increased his magical power output. The entire formation became brighter. Xiao Jiaqiu received a huge influx of magical power. Her entire body floated into the air. However, she couldn't control her body now. Floating was a completely passive reaction. The magical power flowed through her body and into the two-legged snake. The two-legged snake's huge body stood up. It seemed like it was going to climb into the sky. Of course, it didn't have that ability. Even a serpent couldn't fly. A serpent wasn't a real dragon, so it couldn't fly. Roar! The two-legged snake let out a dragon roar. A pair of serpent claws grew out from its abdomen. Sharp spikes also extended from its back. It's done. Zhou Yiren was relieved. The two-legged snake was no longer a snake demon. It was a serpent that everyone respected. Its strength was close to half a step into the Shanqing realm. Its body had also grown by half. It was originally 20 meters long, but now it was at least 30 meters long. A small world started forming around it. Chun Zhao was a bit surprised. The serpent was much stronger than he'd imagined. The serpent spat out an electric ball and shot it at Xiao Jiaqiu. Xiao Jiaqiu wasn't injured. Instead, she recovered in the electric ball. Minister, that's also lightning? What lightning? That's the serpent's origin. Maybe it was affected by Mr. Chun, so it developed a second lightning element. It used its own lightning origin to recover Xiao Jiaqiu's vitality. The two of them were originally connected. I thought that they could separate after the snake demon turned into a serpent, but they became even more entangled. Now that the snake demon has successfully turned into a serpent, I don't have to worry about Xiao Jiaqiu's vitality being sucked away. The whole process took less than 10 seconds. Xiao Jiaqiu had completely recovered. Not only was she not weak at all, but she was also full of energy. Miss Xiao, congratulations, Zhou Yiren said, walking over. You're welcome, Minister Zhou. Chun Zhao also walked to the center of the field. From now on, this serpent will be your spiritual beast. Keep it in check. Chun Zhao glanced at the serpent. That's rare. This serpent has both lightning and wood elements now. It's even rarer among serpents. It might be able to turn into a dragon in the future. Dragon? What are you thinking? With his level, it's already so difficult to turn into a serpent. He'll lose his life if he turns into a dragon. The serpent didn't dare to retort. It was the truth, but she shouldn't say it out loud. Mr. Chun, thank you. Xiao Jiaqiu knew that without Chun Zhao's help, she would have died hundreds of times. No need to thank me. I didn't help because of you. No matter what, Mr. Chun saved my life. Chun Zhao didn't have a good impression of Xiao Jiaqiu. He wouldn't change it just because of a few words. Don't make trouble for me in the future. That'll be the greatest gratitude. I wouldn't dare to make trouble again. Plus, I'm a civil servant now. Of course, I'll obey the law. Right, Minister Zhou? Huh. It's good that you think that way. Xiao Jiaqiu was now the representative of the Special Intelligence Department. Of course, he had to give her some face. Plus, with the serpent's help, no matter how rusty she was still a powerful fighter. He had to make good use of her. Anyway, you wouldn't let her go for no reason. Mr. Chun, Minister Zhou, it's all because of your help that I've been reborn. Can we have a meal together? It'll be my way of repaying you. Chapter 3269. In the end, Chun Zhao didn't attend the banquet. It was impossible for Xiao Jiaqio to not have any complaints about Chun Zhao. She wasn't a broad-minded woman to begin with. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to call her narrow-minded. However, she knew very well Chun Zhao could crush her in all aspects. So, she didn't reveal her thoughts at all. Minister Zhou, I want to know more about cultivators. Can you tell me? What do you want to know specifically? It's mainly about cultivation. Actually, Xiao Jiaqio had already learned a lot about the spiritual world from Lei Mu. Lei Mu was the name she'd given to the flood dragon, because the flood dragon was lightning wood. So, she just called it this name. The flood dragon didn't object either. However, she didn't get much information from Lei Mu. She even had a lot of misconceptions. After all, Lei Mu wasn't human, and he'd been sealed for decades. He didn't know much about the spiritual world either. What useful information could he give Xiao Jiaqio? Regarding cultivation, our Special Intelligence Department has quite a few. What level can you reach? Now that Miss Xiao has a flood dragon as a spiritual pet and you two are connected, you're blessed. It won't be hard for you to reach the level of a flood dragon. Then what level is my flood dragon Thunderwood in the spiritual world? Top level, Zhou Yiren said. Not just in the country, but in the entire world. Oh, Lei Mu is top level? But I think he's much weaker than Mr. Chun. You compare to Mr. Chun? Then there's no way. Since Lei Mu is top level, why can't we compare? The flood dragon is at the top, but Mr. Chun is at the top. There aren't many in the world who can compete with him, and he's also one of the best among the best. I don't think there are more than 3 who can match him, and none can defeat him. Then, how can Lei Mu surpass him? If you transform into a dragon, you can barely be considered one of the best. Then how? It's not that easy. If you cultivate for 500 years and don't die to Heaven's test, you can transform. 500 years? Department head Zhou must be joking with me. Of all the living beings in the world, apart from humans who can reach the pinnacle with a lifespan of 100 years, no matter how intelligent the other creatures are, it is difficult for them to reach the pinnacle within 100 years. But isn't a dragon a divine beast? Dragons are divine beasts, but they are somewhat different from what you think. There are 2 types of dragons. The divine beasts born from heaven and earth are born with the ability to penetrate the heavens and the earth. They can split into chi and travel between the mountains and rivers. They can also condense into a human form and are called divine dragons. Zhou Yiren paused again and said, there's another kind, like the true dragon evolved from your spiritual pet, the flood dragon. If it can transform into a dragon, it will naturally have extraordinary strength, but it's still 1,000 miles away from the divine dragon. It's already very commendable to be ranked at the top. If it wants to go one step further, it will require another 1,000 years of cultivation. In other words, the Thunderwood will never evolve again in my lifetime. There are no absolutes in this world, but it's not completely impossible. Now that the spiritual tide has arrived, there are many strange phenomena in the world, and there are many ancient treasures. If there's a chance, it's not impossible to transform into a dragon in one's lifetime. But the chances are slim. If it's so easy to reach the top, there won't only be a few in the world. Mr. Chan is probably not older than me, right? How did he cultivate? Everyone is different. Why don't you think about it? How can someone become Father Ma? And some people are still struggling to feed themselves. Everyone understood the logic, but Xiao Jiaqio was still unwilling to accept it. Miss Xiao, you should be more open-minded about some things. If one day, can you reach Mr. Chen's level? Even a national level might give you some face. And before that, you should recognize reality. Zhou Yiren was also an understanding person. Of course he could tell. Xiao Jiaqio had a lot of complaints about him. He didn't talk about right or wrong or grievances. Some rights and wrongs were determined based on strength. Some grievances only existed because one was powerless. Miss Xiao, let's talk about the development plan of the Special Intelligence Department. After all, you're a member now, so you need to make your own contribution. Of course, I'll do my best to cooperate with the Special Intelligence Department's publicity work. Also, it's within the Special Intelligence Department's capabilities. I also hope that the Special Intelligence Department can support my acting career. Is that for sure? It's a win-win situation. Chen Zhao was as free as usual these 2 days. Every day, he played and walked around. Boss, the company has moved to a new office building. Do you want to come and take a look? Not anymore. I have something to do today. Yes, Chen Zhao had something to do. He had to go to an online celebrity shop. In the past few days, Chen Zhao had gone to quite a few online celebrity shops. It wasn't that the food was really delicious. He just wanted something new. If he really wanted delicious food, Chen Zhao would hire a national banquet chef. He would make a Manchu Han imperial feast for himself every day. Okay, Zhang Ting was a bit disappointed. Chen Zhao felt that he had only gone to the company once in the half a month he had been back. It was indeed a bit ridiculous. Then go. You're still working, right? Are you coming now? Yes, I'll go now. Otherwise, I'll be lonely after everyone gets off work. The animation company's new location was better than the previous office building. The interior was also better. This was all because they had enough money. Wang Yi Studio was also nearby. The monthly rent here was 800,000 yuan. It was really expensive, but the location was really good. If not for the fact that the company didn't want to sell the building. Chen Zhao wanted to buy the entire building. When Chen Zhao arrived at the company, Zhang Ting even called all the higher-ups to the door to welcome him. Then Zhang Ting took Chen Zhao to all the departments in the company. Actually, besides visiting the new location, Zhang Ting called Chen Zhao over. At the same time, she also wanted to show Chen Zhao their current results. Right now, they had already made a few minutes of unedited footage. It was mainly for Chen Zhao to see the effect. Chen Zhao actually watched cartoons too, but he really wasn't a professional. His initial investment wasn't some grand and lofty ideal. After watching the footage for a few minutes, Chen Zhao kept praising it. The characters were exquisite, the camera was beautiful, and the storyboard was accurate. Basically, these are the words. As for whether it was good or not, that was for the professionals to decide. Usually, after an animation project started, they would first make the climax of the script and then use it to get investors. For example, the famous Neza and the Great Sage both used this method. Their project was the same. What Chen Zhao saw was the climax of the script. Boss, stop praising it. As the audience, do you think there's anything that could be improved? Chapter 3270. Do we have enough money to burn? That was all Chen Zhao could say after holding it in for a long time. Connoisseurs appreciated the artistry, while amateurs enjoyed the show. Chen Zhao was a complete amateur. The scene he had just seen was indeed exciting. However, he knew that this quality would definitely cost a lot of money. Boss, this is the climax of the movie. Not every scene needs to be this expensive, especially for 3D movies. Some scenes can be cut to control the budget, Zhang Ting said. Zhang Ting said, this clip cost about 600,000 yuan per minute, and the other scenes cost less than 100,000 yuan per minute. They're all animated scenes. Why is there such a huge difference? Using a high frame count for the fighting scenes can make the movements more coherent and realistic. There's also more special effects and post-processing. All in all, it really doesn't add up to much. If it's a Hollywood movie, some special scenes can even reach $1 million per minute. However, the scene we're showing now costs 600,000 yuan per minute. It's already the best in China. Then why can't we do a Hollywood movie? Not enough skills? It's not because of the technology, it's because there's no need for it. First of all, our labor costs are cheaper. Let's take an artist as a comparison. The price of an artist of the same level in China is 10 times higher. An artist overseas can earn 5,000 to 10,000 USD per image, but 2,000 RMB in China is enough to hire a very good artist. This is a huge savings in our budget. Secondly, our production process is all done internally, unlike Hollywood's industrial style. Many of their shots are outsourced to other companies, and the same goes for their special effects. Thus, the price is naturally much higher. As for the difference in technology, there's no obvious difference in the technology of special effects. In fact, Many of Hollywood's beyond grade A movies are outsourced by local special effects companies. But I think there's still an obvious difference between the special effects in China and Hollywood. That depends on the investment price. $100 million and 10 million yuan. Anyone can see the difference, Zhang Ting said with a smile. Zhang Ting smiled and said, and the movie industry itself is a high-risk industry. The domestic market is not fully mature, and 90% of the movies that are released every year are not able to recover their costs through the cinema chain. Investing $100 million in a movie budget is very likely to result in a serious loss. Zhang Ting seemed to be worried that Chen Zhao would misunderstand that the cartoon he invested in would lose money, so she added, but the domestic market environment is developing in a good direction. The most obvious change is the increase in the domestic box office. Also, the channel, for example, the 3 major video websites. What's more, the country is actively cracking down on piracy, which is also beneficial to the domestic environment. The risk is decreasing year by year. The profits are also increasing year by year. Yes, that's great. Chen Zhao nodded. Other than that, Chen Zhao didn't know what to say. This cartoon wasn't just Chen Zhao's investment. It was also Zhang Ting's painstaking effort. Everyone in the animation industry dreamed of making a blockbuster movie. What if this cartoon was successful? Zhang Ting would also have a better attitude when working for him. Therefore, Chen Zhao hoped that the cartoon would be successful. If you don't have enough money, tell me, Chen Zhao said. I'll fully support this cartoon. Got it, boss. Also, if this cartoon fails, don't be discouraged. I won't blame anyone. Just treat it as supporting the domestic animation industry. Chen Zhao planned to give Zhang Ting a heads up first. Boss, we're just getting started. You're the one who's discouraged. Okay, are you free in the afternoon? Come walk with me if you're free. Zhang Ting naturally couldn't reject Chen Zhao. After lunch, Zhang Ting called the company's car to pick Chen Zhao up. Old Wu, go to Nanjing Road, Mingho Street. Okay, CEO Zhang. The driver, Old Wu, glanced at the rearview mirror. However, the car wasn't going in the direction they wanted to go. Old Wu, did you drive the wrong way? Old Wu glanced at the rearview mirror. Suddenly, he turned the steering wheel. In an instant, the car drove into a container of a truck driving on the highway. The truck had been driving the container, as if waiting for this moment. After their car entered the container, the door closed. There was no light in the entire container. Old Wu, what are you doing? But Old Wu didn't respond to Zhang Ting's question. Zhang Ting heard the door open and close. Clearly, Old Wu had escaped from the car during this time. He even pulled out the car key. Now, both Zhang Ting and Chen Zhao were in darkness. Zhang Ting's expression was very ugly. She had a premonition that something bad was about to happen. Old Wu's actions were obviously premeditated. What was it for? Now that Chen Zhao was here, his motive was almost certain. Mr. Chen, I'm sorry. I met the wrong person. Chen Zhao chuckled. It's okay. Maybe it's just a misunderstanding. Boss, I'm afraid it's not a misunderstanding. I think we've been kidnapped. What a disagreeable piece of news. Boss, don't worry. It'll be fine. Zhang Ting wasn't nervous at all. Instead, she tried to comfort Chen Zhao. Zhang Ting had already prepared for the worst. After this, no matter how magnanimous Chen Zhao was, he probably wouldn't be able to contain her anymore. Zhang Ting was very, very angry. She took out her phone, but there was no signal. The container clearly blocked the signal. However, this was also reasonable. Zhang Ting squeezed angrily, and the phone actually shattered. Zhang Ting, your strength isn't small at all. Huh? Zhang Ting chuckled softly. Boss, turn your head. Huh? Do what? Just listen to me. Fine. Chen Zhao turned his head. Then he heard the sound of a car window shattering. At the same time, there was the sound of someone kicking the door. Boss, we can get out now, Zhang Ting said. Chen Zhao was a bit surprised. It seemed that Zhang Ting wasn't as simple as she looked. Chen Zhao really didn't realize that Zhang Ting wasn't an ordinary person. There was a strong flow of air around her body. In the past, Chen Zhao had always thought that Zhang Ting was just a female elite. Perhaps it was because she was a strong career woman. As a result, Chen Zhao never thought about Zhang Ting's other aspects. But now, she clearly wasn't going to hide it anymore. "Boss," Zhang Ting said, "use your phone." Chen Zhao turned on his phone and illuminated the environment inside the container. The container had clearly been modified. There were many layers and partitions. Chapter 32:71. Zhang Ting looked back at Chen Zhao. Then he walked to the edge of the container. Chen Zhao tilted his head and looked at Zhang Ting. Zhang Ting suddenly punched the metal wall of the container. Duong. With a loud bang, an obvious fist print appeared on the metal wall. "This container has been modified." Zhang Ting's face darkened. This punch didn't meet Zhang Ting's expectations. "Director Zhang, don't waste your energy. This container is enchanted with talismans. Even if you die of exhaustion, you won't be able to break through this container." Old Wu's voice could be heard. "Old Wu, you know who I am?" "Hee hee. I've heard of the reputation of the Zhang clan of Eagle Swamp, so there's no need for you to repeat it. Old Wu, I've always treated you well, right? Is this how you repay me?" "Haha. No matter how well you usually treat me, it can't compare to money. If Mr. Zhang is willing to stay out of this matter, I will not mistreat Mr. Zhang after everything is done. Naturally, Mr. Zhang will have share." Zhang Ting looked back at Chen Zhao and said calmly, "Wu, do you know what you're doing? You don't have to worry about whether I know or not. Since I dare to do it, I have nothing to fear." Zhang Ting was furious. Her dream, her future, had been ruined by this bastard. Bang! In her anger, Zhang Ting punched the iron wall again. But even with her full strength, she could only leave a fist mark on the iron wall. If you wanted to break this container, you would need at least a few hundred punches. At this moment, the car stopped. They should have arrived at their destination. "Don't worry, President Chun. I won't let anything happen to you." Chen Zhao smiled and shook his head. "I'm not worried. President Chun, I'm really sorry. I didn't know you well enough." At this moment, an unknown gas suddenly surged into the container. Cough, cough. Zhang Ting kept coughing. "Bastard." Zhang Ting gritted her teeth and growled. However, the bewildering smoke was very choking. It should be some kind of magic used to confuse people. She felt that the flow of her magic power was incomparably slow. Then, even his physical strength disappeared. His limbs felt weak, and he couldn't even stand steadily. Zhang Ting lay on the ground and turned her head with difficulty. She realized that Chen Zhao was standing there. Chen Zhao waved his hand. The smoke smelled really bad. At this moment, the container door opened. Zhang Ting suddenly felt that someone was lifting her up. It was Chen Zhao who was carrying her. She was confused as to why Chen Zhao wasn't affected. Although the smoke was targeted at her, it was not a big deal. However, this bewildering smoke did not affect cultivators or ordinary people. Will be the same 4 limbs will be weak. Chen Zhao carried Zhang Ting and jumped off the container. The people outside were stunned for a moment. What was going on? Why was Chen Zhao fine? Was he not affected by the enchanting smoke? "Be careful. This person is a little strange," Old Wu reminded his companions in a low voice. "I've been vegetarian and praying to Buddha. I won't kill." Chen Zhao smiled at Old Wu and the others. "If you don't kill, the outside world doesn't have to worry." Old Wu smirked. Suddenly, a black shadow emerged from the bushes at the periphery. The black shadow's speed was extremely fast, and it instantly appeared in front of Old Wu and the others. Old Wu and the others were not weak, so they immediately noticed the newcomers. However, the newcomer's combat experience was extremely rich. First, he shot a green light at one of the kidnappers. The kidnapper was the weakest and was immediately entangled by the green light. The other kidnappers wanted to save their companions, but the newcomer pulled the green light and the bound kidnapper swept past his companions. One of the kidnappers tried to hug his companion, but he was sent flying with it. But the green light turned into a poisonous snake. It quickly bit the 2 kidnappers. The 2 kidnappers realized that the situation was bad and tried to fight again. They stumbled a few steps and fell to the ground again. "Oh no, The kidnappers all felt that the newcomer's strength was unfathomable. The kidnappers were about the same, but the newcomer could easily defeat two of them. They probably could not hold on for long. Old Wu turned to escape, but just then, a large number of poisonous scorpions suddenly emerged from the bushes. Though a lot of them, they covered an area of dozens of meters. They completely blocked Old Wu's escape route. Moreover, the scorpions were approaching him. Old Wu could only change directions. When he looked back, he realized that his companions had all fallen. Mr. Chun, the newcomer, was none other than Mo Han. Another person appeared from the bushes. It was Mo Han's girlfriend, Zhao Li. Old Wu was the only kidnapper left standing. Do you want to help your girlfriend? Mo Han looked back and shook his head. No need. Mo Han saw Zhang Ting in Chun Zhao's hand. Mr. Chun, do you need me to see your friend? Chun Zhao placed Zhang Ting on the ground. Mo Han came over to check. He then took out a pill and stuffed it into Zhang Ting's mouth. Soon, the enchanting smoke on Zhang Ting was dispelled. Zhang Ting, how do you feel? Chief Chun, this is my bodyguard, Chun Zhao said. Zhang Ting was in a trance. It was no wonder. Chun Zhao was such a big boss. It was impossible not to have a bodyguard. It turned out that there was such a powerful bodyguard following them. No wonder Chun Zhao could walk around so casually. Furthermore, he wasn't surprised at all when he saw his monstrous strength. So he had seen it before. At this time, Zhao Li had already dealt with Old Wu. President Chun, I'm very sorry. Put you in danger? I am voluntarily resigning from my current position. No need? I didn't take it to heart. It's just a small matter. President Chun, this is not a small matter. If I say it's a small matter, then it's a small matter. It wasn't like Zhang Ting betrayed him. Chun Zhao didn't blame Zhang Ting. To Chun Zhao, he was a grown man showing off his wealth everywhere. He didn't even have a bodyguard with him. It was no wonder that someone would think about him. Chun Zhao wasn't surprised by the kidnapping at all. Plus, Zhang Ting couldn't possibly know who in the company wanted to harm him. She couldn't read minds either. Plus, Chun Zhao valued Zhang Ting a lot. His current ultimate move, Neutron Star, was Zhang Ting's idea. This neutron star was very meaningful to him. Just this alone made it worth Chun Zhao asking her to stay. Chun Zhao also hoped that Zhang Ting could give him more constructive suggestions in the future. Zhang Ting didn't expect Chun Zhao to be so firm. He didn't blame her at all. President Chun, how about I demote myself and reduce my salary? There's no need for this formality. Okay, this ends here. Then Old Wu and the others. There will be professionals dealing with this, Chun Zhao said. I've informed the Special Intelligence Division, Mo Han said. He was running a security company now, so he naturally had to deal with the Special Intelligence Division. I'll leave it to you. Oh, you drove here, right? Mo Han passed the car keys to Chun Zhao. Chapter 3272. In the evening, Chun Zhao went to the Special Intelligence Department after dinner. The headquarters of the Huadong region's Special Intelligence Department was set up in an old house from the 30s or 40s. There were 2 floors in total, and a sign was hung outside. Unconventional Security Operations Department. There were houses all around, and they were all old houses of similar age. When Chun Zhao entered the headquarters of the Special Intelligence Department, Zhou Yiren walked out. Mr. Chun, why are you here? Ha! I'm here to see the people who kidnapped me, Chun Zhao said, chuckling. All right, I'll take you to see them. Passing through the courtyard, Chun Zhao realized that the Special Intelligence Department was rather small. Minister Zhou, I saw a lot of people in the Special Intelligence Department a few days ago, but I don't think this place can hold so many people. It's not like they sit in an office. Other than a few people who deal with paperwork, the other members in charge of the operation basically sleep at home. If they have something to do, they go out to carry out missions. Not many of them need an office. After entering a small room, Zhou Yiren opened the entrance to a cellar. It turned out that there was still space below, but it was just a dungeon. There were a total of 10 rooms, and the area was quite small. Each cubicle was about 6 square meters. They ate and drank together. Minister Zhou, your conditions have really widened my horizons. This feeling was similar to when he first accepted the supernatural organization. But the supernatural organization was weak because they didn't have the power. Without strength, one would naturally have no money. However, even with Chun Zhao's current knowledge, the strength of the Special Intelligence Division was not something he could deal with. That was also a superb standard. When Xiao Jiaqio's incident happened before, 20 to 30 members of the Secret Intelligence Department, every one of them was basically at the elite level. With such strength, he would definitely be a trump card anywhere in the world. There's nothing I can do. I can't get any funding. Zhou Yiren was also very helpless. Moreover, Shanghai's housing prices are really high. This house is owned by the government. Otherwise, I reckon our department would have to settle in the suburbs. Oh, by the way, this is what I promised Minister Zhou last time. Chun Zhao took out a check and handed it to Zhou Yiren. Mr. Chun, how could I do that? Nothing, just a good karma. Chun Zhao's words were straightforward. If you give me convenience, I'll give you benefits. It's that simple. Zhou Yiren glanced at the number on it, then silently put away the check. On behalf of all the members of the Special Intelligence Department, I thank Mr. Chun. By the way, if you need it, I happen to have a building. It's not in the CBD. It's on Nanjing Road, but it's not far. It's only 4 floors. It's for rent now. If Minister Zhou needs it, I can rent it to the Special Intelligence Department cheaply. What price? Zhou Yiren was tempted. He knew that Chun Zhao would give him a discount. However, this was Shanghai after all. Even if it was not in the CBD, every inch of land was still expensive. Is Nanjing Road considered a bustling area? The small office building also had a sky-high price. In fact, in Shanghai, whether it was in the CBD area or not, the price was sky-high. 100,000 a month. Zhou Yiren gasped. Chun Zhao was basically doing it for free. After all, Chun Zhao's animation company had rented an entire floor. That's 3 million yuan a month. Although the location was in the CBD area, the difference between the two would normally not be double. On the other hand, Chun Zhao still had an entire office building. The rent would only be more expensive than the office building of an animation company. Mr. Chun, is that appropriate? Whether it's suitable or not, Minister Zhou should first look at the environment before deciding. I'm afraid it's too noisy over there. It'll affect your work. Okay. When are you free? Let's go take a look. I'm free anytime. Zhou Yiren opened a cell. Old Wu was inside. Come out, Zhou Yiren yelled. Chun Zhao could be considered his sugar daddy now. This thing kidnapped Chun Zhao. It was another crime committed in his territory. Zhou Yiren naturally had to give Chun Zhao enough face. Old Wu saw that Zhou Yiren had opened the cell so casually. Moreover, he wasn't restrained by shackles yet. He pounced at Chun Zhao. If he could catch Chun Zhao, he might even have a chance to escape. But Zhou Yiren's eyes and hands were sharp. He looked like he was middle-aged and fat, but he was actually many times stronger than the members of the Special Intelligence Department. He did not make any fancy moves, but he just grabbed the back of Old Wu's neck. Old Wu immediately felt that his body couldn't move. Old Wu wanted to struggle again, but Zhou Yiren didn't care. He dragged Old Wu's neck and walked out. The smell is heavy here. Let's go outside. Old Wu was like a rabbit. Zhou Yiren had him under his control. The smell in the dungeon was indeed bad. Out of the dungeon, Chun Zhao took in a deep breath. Someone died down there, right? The smell is really strong. How many years has the Special Intelligence Department been established? Would you believe me if I said no one died? That's true. How we deal with this guy? Zhou Yiren asked. Old Wu's life could be decided with a word from Chun Zhao. But since Chun Zhao had handed him over to the Special Intelligence Department, he definitely didn't plan on killing him. Zhou Yiren wasn't worried that things would be hard to deal with. Nothing. Leave him here. I just want to ask a few questions, Chun Zhao said. Zhou Yiren casually tossed Old Wu to the ground. You'll answer whatever Mr. Chen asks? Don't make trouble for yourself, Zhou Yiren threatened. I've never interacted with you before. Since you know I'm the boss of my company, you must have a spy in the company, right? Fuck you. Old Wu suddenly attacked. He bounced up from the ground and pounced at Chun Zhao. This time, Zhou Yiren didn't attack. Chun Zhao raised his leg and kicked Old Wu's stomach. Old Wu was dumbfounded. He smashed into the wall and then fell to the ground, unable to stand up. Instantly, He knew that Chun Zhao was a cultivator too. Chun Zhao was also many times stronger than him. Speak. You can't run. You don't have to cover for your accomplice. Old Wu glanced at Chun Zhao and closed his eyes with a cold smile. It seemed that he'd accepted his fate and didn't plan on answering Chun Zhao's questions. Oh, you're pretty stubborn. Zhou Yiren sneered. Mr. Chun, leave it to me. I guarantee he'll talk in half an hour. Since he would rather suffer than speak, it must be someone related to him by blood. Check his background. Minister Zhou, that shouldn't be a problem, right? No problem. Old Wu glanced at Chun Zhao and Zhou Yiren and closed his eyes again. Chun Zhao waited outside for half an hour. Zhou Yiren walked out, sweating profusely. He smiled bitterly at Chun Zhao. Mr. Chun, sorry. That guy's too stubborn. I already broke his bones, but he didn't say anything. Whatever, there's no rush. Chun Zhao wasn't sure if there was a spy. His guess just now was too subjective. After all, he was famous in the company. Maybe he heard the employees talking about him. But if there really was a spy, it was better to get rid of this unsettling factor as soon as possible. Chapter 3273. Stephen went back to Magic City. On the first day he came back, he dragged Chun Zhao to the most expensive restaurant. Dragon Tiger Mountain was a tourist development zone, but the conditions couldn't compare to a city like Magic City. Stephen and the film crew spent most of their time in a Taoist temple. Of course, as a director, Stephen was used to filming in the open, so this wasn't a problem for him. He was a famous director. When he'd filmed Amon, he'd drifted on the sea for more than a month. He hadn't seen any complaints either. If he couldn't film outdoors, he might as well change his career. Stephen, is the filming done? Yes. Now we just need editing. Also, how do you plan to operate this documentary? I'll leave it to you, Chun Zhao said. Chun Zhao had invested in the film industry a few times, but in the end, he was still a layman. This kind of operation needed someone like Stephen to operate. How about Rasfa's company? He called me last time and scolded me for an hour and a half. I'm fine with anything. Chun Zhao shrugged. Chun Zhao had thought that Stephen had such a hard time filming. It was only right for him to earn some money for the operation. But since Stephen said so, Chun Zhao didn't object. Go to Wang for the operation in China. He definitely has connections in this area. Okay. Chun Zhao wasn't worried about not finding a broadcasting platform. After all, the local video websites and TV stations would probably fight to buy it if they heard that it was filmed by Stephen and that it would be broadcast in all countries. Stephen's influence was quite widespread in China. In the next 2 days, Stephen and Chun Zhao had a few meals with Wang He and Chen Ke. Stephen and Wang He were obviously going to invest in the studio. The two had basically discussed the details. Naturally, Wang He would leak the news. The domestic entertainment industry heard that Stephen had invested in Wang He in Chen Ke's studio. They couldn't believe it. They couldn't find out why Stephen did it. But this meant that Wang He and Chen Ke already had a ticket to Hollywood. In the past, they'd gotten roles in Hollywood movies. People in the entertainment industry thought that they were the capital behind the scenes. But it was different now. In Stephen's future movie project, in Stephen's future film projects, they'd be given priority if there were suitable roles. This also made other artists ask tentatively if they could invest in their studio. The result was, of course, negative. Chun Zhao already had a certain amount of shares. Wang had sold his shares to Stephen. He, who originally had the most shares, was now less than Chen Ke. Naturally, he would not thin out his own shares. It was impossible for Chen Ke to sell it. Everyone could see it now. Their studio shares were worth tens of thousands of gold coins. This was not just the valuation in the financial market. It was a shortcut to Hollywood. Chun Zhao also handed the broadcasting rights of the documentary to the studio. As for which channel it would be broadcasted on, Chun Zhao didn't care anymore. In any case, Wang Yi's men would make the necessary arrangements. The domestic affairs were almost settled as well. Liu Yiba's side was also speeding up the bidding for the Great Mysteries Island. The current situation was basically clear, and the chips of the major companies had also surfaced. There were only 3 companies that could compete with them. However, it was hard to say who would be the winner in the end. The only regret was that they couldn't find the spy who kidnapped Chen Zhao. However, Zhou Yiren promised to continue investigating. Naturally, they would take Chen Zhao's private plane back. After a 26-hour flight, Chen Zhao and Stephen finally arrived in Los Angeles. Everything was normal at home. Chen Zhao video called his family every day. Everything was normal for the supernatural organization. There were more and more supernatural incidents that needed to be dealt with. Currently, a large number of supernatural incidents were popping up all over the United States. Some of them were caused by ghosts and monsters. However, a large portion of them were awakened ones. The past 3-night awakening pattern was no longer applicable. A large number of awakened ones did not pass the life and death retribution and inexplicably awakened, and it brought about a certain social impact. After Chen Zhao returned to L.A., it was still 2 o'clock every day. Chen Zhao still insisted on going to the 12th floor every day. The first fire was still refining his bloodline, although the daily improvement was negligible. However, with the accumulation of time, there would still be significant improvements. To his surprise, the golden rock seemed to be affected by the first flame too. The golden rock was already in the stage of evolution. Its bloodline had not yet reached a bottleneck. The primordial flame contained infinite possibilities. President, you mentioned going to Huaxia for an exchange with the Special Intelligence Department's Huaxia branch. I've looked at it, and I personally hope to facilitate this exchange, but we have too much work to do now. Even the outer members have started accepting missions directly, and the exchange will take at least half a month. We've already accumulated more than 200 missions, and as time goes by, the workload will only increase. If we leave for another half a month, I'm afraid it will affect public security. Giving missions with detailed addresses and content. I'll try my best to complete them, Chen Zhao said. President, you'll be in charge? Yes. Missions that are straightforward and only need to kill some monsters or deliver something to run errands can be given to me. If it's a mission that requires complicated procedures, then forget it. Just set a time for the exchange. During the time, I'll be in charge of all the missions. Chen Zhao felt that, as the president of the supernatural organization, he had to take on the responsibilities of the president too. The exchange with China was a rare opportunity. He had no choice. The supernatural organization was in an awkward position right now. In North America, and even the entire Americas, the supernatural organization was a top-tier organization. But after leaving the Americas, the organizations outside didn't think much of the supernatural organization. They couldn't even talk to them. But now, he could communicate with a Chinese organization. Chen Zhao naturally couldn't miss this opportunity. All right then, West nodded. Then West slapped a 30-centimeter thick document on Chen Zhao's table. President, these are our current backlog of missions. Although Chen Zhao had just made a promise, he still felt a headache when he saw so many backlogged missions. Have you picked them all? Yes, they're all very straightforward missions. For the president, they're just running errands. It didn't matter to Chen Zhao how strong or weak these ghosts were. It was just that they were very far apart. Chapter 3274. Phoenix. Helper. High school student Viscera Levy. Chen Zhao flipped through the file and called Viscera Levy according to the contact information on the file. Is this Ms. Viscera Levy? Yes. May I know who you are? Did you request for help from the supernatural half a month ago? Yes. Are you from that supernatural organization? Yes, I am. Do you have time now? Now. Viscera looked at the sky. It was already night. She didn't think it was a good idea to go out at this time. Plus, she'd only said it herself. I'm downstairs. Viscera pulled open the curtains. Indeed, there was someone standing under the shade of the tree. Why are you here? You wrote your address when you applied. Did you forget? Okay, sorry. I'll come down now. Viscera went downstairs carefully without waking up her family. In your request, you want to get rid of the evil spirit in your old house, right? Yes. Is it far from here? About 2 blocks from here. Viscera studied Chen Zhao. Do you mind if I take you there? How are you going to guide me? Chen Zhao grabbed Viscera's wrist. Viscera suddenly felt his body lighten, and then a powerful pressure hit him in the face. She couldn't keep her expression. The next moment, she paused. Chun Zhao looked down and asked, "Which direction?" "Huh, it's over there." Vishra Lebi calmed himself down with much difficulty. 10 seconds later, she finally arrived at the old house. Chun Zhao's little universe scanned the old house. 2 evil spirits. They were relatively dangerous and had killed people before. Chun Zhao casually created 2 balls of light and threw them into the house. All the windows in the house lit up immediately. They were just normal balls of light. They had no use other than illumination. In fact, the 2 evil spirits had already been crushed by Chun Zhao's little universe. Only dregs were left now. However, clients like Viscera Lebi couldn't believe it. If they didn't see it with their own eyes, they wouldn't believe that the evil spirits had been destroyed. So, Chun Zhao needed to create some light screens or special effects. This was to increase the credibility of his actions. Then, a black shadow broke through the window of the room. But in the next instant, the black shadow seemed to have been set ablaze. In an instant, it was burned to ashes. As expected, Vesela Lebi was shocked by this shocking scene. Just now, that was... Vishra Lebi could not close his mouth as he pointed at the scene just now. When the light disappeared, Chun Zhao said, "Okay, the evil spirit has been destroyed. I'll cast a purification spell and completely purify the evil aura in this house." "Is it already over?" "Yes, 2 evil spirits. They're a bit strong, but they're perfectly restrained by my magic. It's fine now. Your parents can sell this house for a good price." Thank you so much. It's my job. You're welcome. I'll send you home now." He returned home faster than he came. When Vishla Lebi landed on the ground, his hair was completely messy. The lights in the house suddenly came on. "Vishla, what are you doing outside alone?" Vishla Lebi froze. When he turned around, Chun Zhao was already gone. Chun Zhao looked at the time. 5 minutes. Not bad. Next. Phew. It's really far. Houston's commission. "Hey, is this Trony? I'm a member of the supernatural organization. You did a commission 10 days ago, right?" Chun Zhao had spent 15 minutes on this mission. 10 of them had been spent on the road. If Chun Zhao went at full speed, he could reach Houston in a few seconds. However, there would be a high-energy reaction during flight. Chun Zhao would probably be targeted by anti-ballistic missiles before he even landed. It would be ridiculous if he landed in front of the client's house with a few tracking missiles. So, Chun Zhao still tried to get to his destination as soon as possible without being detected by radars and satellites. Chun Zhao did not plan to finish all the missions in one day. Under normal circumstances, he couldn't finish them in one day. Even if they were missions that had been selected by West, there were still some complicated missions. Maybe there was a deviation in the recording here. Or maybe the client didn't explain the mission clearly. When Chun Zhao carried out the mission, he couldn't just ignore it because it was slightly different from a mission. For example, Chun Zhao's 3rd mission. The client was in San Francisco. His mission was to destroy an evil spirit that had been pestering him. But in reality, the evil spirit was his dead girlfriend. His girlfriend had no ill intentions. She just stayed by his side because of her obsession with him. It was easy to destroy her soul. One slap could do it. However, this kind of behavior was too outrageous. So, Chun Zhao patiently explained to the client. If the client didn't mind, then the mission would end here. If the client didn't mind, then the supernatural organization would contact some special spiritualists. They would be in charge of purifying the soul and letting her go where she should go. The supernatural organization currently lacked spiritualists. They were people who prayed for the dead. In Eastern terms, they would send the dead to heaven. They would let go of their obsession and return to the 6 realms of reincarnation. Some missions were simple, like Vishla Lebi's. They were just 2 weak, evil spirits. He just had to destroy them. Then he would add a light effect, make the client believe that he had cast a spell. In one day, Chun Zhao had finished 10 missions. He was planning to call a day and was about to go home. Suddenly, an unfamiliar call came in. "Excuse me, are you a spiritualist? How do you know this number?" "I called a supernatural organization. They said that you're in charge of my mission. I want to know, I've been applying for it for a month." When can you finish it for me? A month? Can you tell me your personal information again? I'll check the progress. Carlos Morin. I live in Nashville. Did you find out? Oh, your mission is that there are shadows coming in and out of your house every night. You suspect that there's an evil spirit in your house, right? Yes. How is it? Did my mission go through? Yes, it did, Chun Zhao said. I just happened to take over this mission. I'm in Nashville now and heading to your house. Chapter 3275. Are you in Nashville already? The man clearly didn't expect Chun Zhao to be in Nashville already. There seems to be a lot of wind over there. Oh, I'm in the car, Chun Zhao answered casually. I'm already at your address, Chun Zhao replied casually, but it doesn't look like someone lives here. Chun Zhao landed and realized that 699 Deer King Street wasn't a residential area. Instead, it was a cemetery. Are you here? Wait a moment. I'll be there soon. About 20 minutes later, a car stopped beside the cemetery. Two people got out of the car. Chun Zhao glanced at them and frowned. The two men hid their auras very well. However, they didn't have any special techniques to hide their auras. They weren't normal people. Like Chun Zhao, they were spiritualists. They could only hide their auras with their own abilities. If it was an ordinary spiritual controller, it would indeed be very difficult to detect their cultivation. However, they couldn't hide from Chun Zhao. Before Chun Zhao, they couldn't hide at all. So, whether this mission was really like what it was in the mission description was, there were clearly some discrepancies. Which one of you is Mr. Carlos Mullen? Chun Zhao asked. The mission said that there was an evil spirit in Carlos Mullen's house. However, with the two men's abilities, an evil spirit might not be their match, unless it was a ghost king in their house. I am, a man in his 30s said, stepping forward. What about this one? This is my older brother, right, Mullen? Then take me to your house. I'm in a hurry and hope to purify it as soon as possible. The two brothers exchanged glances. Okay, sir, please follow us. Carlos Mullen said. Oh, sir, how should I address you? I'm Chinese. You can call me Chun. Okay, Mr. Chun. Chun Zhao got into the two men's car. I don't understand why you gave me the address of a cemetery. That's not a good client. Oh, I wrote the wrong address, Carlos Mullen said casually. The car stopped before a house. Mr. Chun, we're here. Please get off. Chun Zhao looked at the house before him. Is it here? The house looked like it had been around for a long time. The whole house was filled with a strong spiritual energy. If there really was an evil spirit inside, it would indeed be very powerful. We'll wait for you here. We don't dare to go inside. Chun Zhao nodded and entered the house. However, after entering the house, the door was locked with a click. Chun Zhao looked back at the door and continued walking. At this moment, there was a commotion in the room. It was as if there were many people, or rather, a family. Old people, children, women, men, babies. They were playing, resting, crying, angry, and happy. The entire house was filled with the emotions of these people. Another host has arrived? I hope this time. A voice came from the room. This voice was an amalgamation of all the previous voices. It was just one sentence, but it was heavily emphasized. A spiritual body appeared before Chun Zhao. It was a six-faced evil spirit, one that Chun Zhao had never seen before. There were 6 faces on its head: an old person, a child, a woman, a man, a baby, and a ferocious-looking face at the back of its head. Don't run, please don't run, or else I'll be angry. You don't want to see me angry, the 6-faced evil spirit said in a strange tone. The 6-faced evil spirit said in a strange tone, Human, I will allow your soul to escape, but you must leave your body behind. Chun Zhao opened his arms. If you want my body, then come. The 6-faced evil spirit pounced at Chun Zhao. However, it didn't take over Chun Zhao's body as expected. Instead, it passed through Chun Zhao's body. The 6-faced evil spirit was stunned. What's going on? So polite. I didn't resist at all. Do you want to try again? The 6-faced evil spirit was infuriated by Chun Zhao's words. It pounced again, but this time it missed again. It passed through as if it had hit a wall. Chen Zhao yawned. Are you serious? Didn't you say you want to take over my body? You damned human. I'm going to tear you apart. The six-faced evil spirit was furious. It felt like the human was playing with it. Carlos, do you think the demonic spirit can succeed? Carlos Malouin hesitated for a moment before shaking his head. I reckon it'll be very difficult. That demon spirit has the emotions of 100 people and the faces of 1,000 people. Even if we find him the body of a spiritualist, I'm afraid it'll be very difficult to bear his power. How'd that guy appear? I've never seen such a terrifying spirit before. It's not natural. It's man-made. Man-made? Can someone create such a monstrous spirit? Apparently, this method is a combination of Eastern soul training and Western death magic. First, it needs a family with 5 people. The family members must be an old person, a couple, a child, and an infant. Then, they'll be killed in order. Then, the spirits of the family of 5 will be placed in the hospital morgue to absorb the corpse aura in the morgue for 81 days. Why is it so similar to Thai ghost raising? Yes, it's Thailand's method of raising ghosts. This method is called the soul refinement method. In the East, the soul refinement method also means home. The vengeful spirit of extreme, is actually not particularly ferocious in the East. However, when combined with the Western death magic, it evolved into the ferocious demonic spirit of today. The vengeful spirit of extreme, is specifically fed with special food. What food? The soul of a wife who was abused by her husband, the soul of a student who was bullied by his classmates, the soul of a child who was abandoned by his parents, the soul of a man whose lover was stolen by his best friend, the soul of a loser who was cheated of all his assets, the soul of the unemployed, the soul of the disabled. So, you're looking for souls filled with hatred? That's right. It's through this method of feeding, one a day, that the ultimate demon spirit is finally born. Carlos Malouin said. Then what about its owner? No one can control this ultimate demonic spirit, not even its creator. In the end, the owner will be devoured by the ultimate demonic spirit and become its food. What a pitiful guy. Now, the ultimate demonic spirit is only one step away. It's missing a host that can store its soul. Then, its power will be unprecedentedly strong. However, since the invention of this method, there hasn't been a complete ultimate demonic spirit. It's already so terrifying now. How terrifying will it be if it really appears in its complete form? Chapter 3276. Just then, the door opened. Chen Zhao walked out of the house. Carlos Malouin and Wright Malouin were both stunned. How had he walked out? No, he could walk out now. Had the ultimate demon spirit succeeded? This man's body could bear the ultimate demon spirit. In other words, this man was actually the ultimate demon spirit? Disbelief filled the 2 brothers' faces. Before this, they'd tricked over a dozen spiritualists through various methods. Among them, there were 2 or 3 spiritualists who were very famous. But the ultimate demon spirit's parasitism had all failed. They hadn't expected that the nameless spiritualist they'd found today would successfully let the ultimate demon spirit possess him. The 2 brothers glanced at each other, planning to go over and ask. But the next moment, they saw a black liquid seeping out of the ground at the door. The 2 brothers couldn't help but look inside. In the darkness, they saw the ultimate demon spirit. The ultimate demon spirit hadn't possessed this man. A lot of questions popped up in their heads. The next moment, they realized something was wrong, because the ultimate demon spirit seemed to be in pain on the hallway. The source of his pain seemed to be the black liquid coming from the ground. The black liquid was corroding the ultimate demon spirit's body. But the ultimate demon spirit body was also black, so it didn't seem obvious. But the ultimate demon spirit clearly wanted to break free of the black liquid on the ground. But every time he struggled, the black liquid would only stick tighter to him. The 2 brothers' expressions were unnatural. What had happened? How could the ultimate demon spirit be like this? The ultimate devil spirit looked at the 2 brothers in despair and reached out a hand. Save me. Please, Please help me. He cried out in a low voice. Behind the ultimate demon spirit, the black liquid churned and covered him. But the ultimate demon spirit was very tenacious. He burrowed out again, but he still couldn't break free of the black liquid. A chill rose from the bottom of the two brothers' feet. Was this still the insufferably arrogant and vicious ultimate demon spirit? In the past, they'd suffered a lot from the ultimate demon spirit's threats and oppression. But now, they only felt a sense of desolation. The ultimate demon spirit grew more and more desperate. However, his aura was constantly weakening. Like a deflated balloon, he started shriveling. Black liquid seeped out of each of its facial features. Finally, its aura completely disappeared. The black liquid covered him again. This time, the ultimate demon spirit wasn't able to crawl out. It was completely swallowed by the black liquid. Then the black liquid started flowing back. It flowed out of the room, back to Chen Zhao's feet, and finally disappeared. Without saying a word, the two of them broke into a run. But the next moment, black liquid seeped out of his feet again. Then, at an even faster speed, it circled in front of the two brothers and turned into the color of fire, as if it was lava. The current dark magma was no longer pure dark magma. As Chen Zhao's power and level increased, he could switch between lava and the dark serum at will. Sir, Mr. Chen, please listen to our explanation. We were forced to do this. Chen Zhao smiled and shook his head. Sure, you don't have to say anything. I understand. Do you really understand? Of course, it's normal for humans to make such a decision based on their desire to survive. If it were me, I would probably make the same decision. Thank you. Thank you for your understanding. Can we go now? Chen Zhao was still smiling. I can understand, but that doesn't mean I accept it. So sorry. I'm in a hurry. The surrounding magma suddenly lunged at the two brothers. No, the two brothers wailed. The next moment, the house in front of them exploded into pieces with a loud bang. The magma returned to Chen Zhao's body. The two brothers' corpses had also turned into charcoal. The police could only conclude that they died in a fire. Chen Zhao took out the letter. The next one is, he encountered a small accident during the mission. It wasted some time, but it was a boring mission. Such a small accident could make Chen Zhao more energetic. Chen Zhao had originally planned to call it a day and go home. Now that he was energetic again, he planned to do a few more missions before going back. Morning, darling. Chen Zhao made breakfast. Fei Lai rubbed her hair. Morning. A while later, the children woke up one after another. Portia and Zephyra also arrived soon after. Portia came to get breakfast out of habit. She was a bit tight on money recently. She couldn't help it. She was the kind of person who didn't learn her lesson. Chen Zhao had pressured her so much earlier that she wanted to die. She almost said that she would go to the union to sue Chen Zhao. But because she bought a branded bag a few days ago, she started pestering Chen Zhao to borrow money again. Chen Zhao still lent her money. He still charged her higher interest than the bank. She also owed the bank a lot of money. So, apart from Chen Zhao, she couldn't find anyone who was willing to lend her money. Even loan sharks weren't willing to lend her money, because her credibility was too poor. Boss, if you don't lend me some money, your beautiful assistant will really go to San Fernando Valley to film a movie, Portia begged Chen Zhao bitterly. That's great. Haven't you always dreamed of being a female star? Maybe this is a good chance to debut. Portia gave Chen Zhao the middle finger and threw herself on the sofa angrily. Fei Lai never cared about Portia, and Portia never borrowed money from Fei Lai. Portia, why don't you borrow money from Zephyra? Fei Lai asked, smiling. She's the same as you. She won't lend me money at all. Then why do you think your boss will lend you money? Because he can't wait to push me into an even deeper abyss. Huh? Chen Zhao chuckled. Okay, keep working hard. I'm going to work now. Miss Fei Lai, do you have any openings in the coastal rescue team? The ones with super high salaries. It's best if you don't have to do anything but lie on the beach and bask in the sun every day. I'll ask for you. Fei Lai didn't want to listen to Portia's nonsense. After Fei Lai left, Chen Zhao crossed his legs and said, I have a job here. Do you want it? Is the salary high? Your pay is based on the amount of work. The more you do, the more you get. What job? Supernatural incidents, Chun Zhao said. These missions cost $20,000 each. They're all within Los Angeles. That you're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.